I'm going to go ahead and call the Thursday, June 13th work session to order. Please stand for flag salute, moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Baldino,
Here.
Mr. Cannon,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue, Mr. Elling,
Present.
He's on there.
Mr. Johnston,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Here.
Ms. Lynch,
Here.
Mr. Scaff,
Here.
Mrs. Smith,
Here.
9 members present.
Okay, we had an executive session starting at 5:31 tonight, lasting to 6:48, dealing with some legal issues. Moving right along. We have a district data presentation.
So we have information that and data from across this school year that we want to present to you. And we're going to start off talking about multi-tiered system of supports. So multi-tiered system of supports, or MTSS, is something that the district started working on a couple of years ago. If you would please advance to the next slide. And so up on the screen, you'll see a graphic that kind of describes multi-tiered systems of support. The idea is that we provide a general education that's appropriate for the grade level for all of our students. And we believe by doing that, about 80% of our students will be successful if our tier 1 program is doing exactly what we want it to do. So we should see about 80% of success for all students when our tier 1 is configured properly and delivering the instruction in those 3 areas, those 3 kind of balls that you see behind the triangle there, academically, behaviorally, and social and emotionally. You'll see the learning and success of about 80% of the students. We know that about 15% will need something extra. So in addition to those tier 1 educational opportunities that we're providing for the students, we're providing them a little bit extra. And that can take a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's just a little bit of extra support in the classroom. Sometimes it's additional people in the classroom. But we also know that about 5% of students need even more than that. And so in addition to both the tier 1 supports and the tier 2 supports, we're providing tier 3 supports. And again, as you see up on the screen there, we're doing that for students academically, behaviorally, and social and emotionally. And this is a system, as I mentioned, that we put in a few years ago, and we're still working out some of those things. One of the things that we're paying a lot of attention to more recently over the summer and into next year is really making sure that our tier 1 supports are what they need to be so that we can see that 80% success rate in all of our students. Next slide, please.
So the first set of data that we're going to take a look at is the academic data. And this encompasses a lot. We tried to sort of summarize this down into a smallest chunk as possible, but go ahead, Colton, to the next slide. On the screen and in the paper, on the paper in front of you, you will see what we call the reading rope. So over the last few years, for those of you who have been on the board for a few years, you know that we've really been working to align to the science of reading. The science of reading is a body of research that shows us the ways that students are successful in becoming skilled readers. And so there's 2 parts of that rope that you see in front of you. That bottom part is all about the word recognition. This is mostly happening in our K-1-2 classrooms. And when they're starting to begin to develop as readers. So this is when we work on sounds and letters and putting those things together to to read whole words. But then in that orange part of the reading rope, you'll see that this is more the language comprehension side of creating a skilled reader, where we have things like background knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, their ability to understand sentences and reasoning, as well as just understand basic logic. So over the last few years, we've been working really hard on that blue part of the rope.
Yeah.
We've poured a lot of support into our K-1-2 classrooms. We've put a lot of programming in place to be able to strengthen those blue strands of the rope. We've trained all of our teachers over the last 3 years on the very best practices aligned to the science of reading. And so we've really laid a solid foundation as to why this is important and how, and this giving teachers the skills that they need to successfully implement this in the classroom. So when we are looking first at our English language arts data, that'll be the first data we look at tonight. One thing that we want to really focus on is, are the things that we've been doing in the last few years working?
Right.
Because we've put a lot of support there. And then looking forward, we know that the ELA resource that the teachers have been using for the last 12 years is not aligned to the science of reading. And so when we're looking at that orange component from the reading rope, we know we have areas of growth for that part of the reading rope. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as we look at the data, but we wanted to give you kind of this background on how the pieces of teaching English language arts work together to create a skilled reader, and what we're going to do moving forward to make sure that we have the best things in place for our kids. Next slide. So when you look at, this is our English language arts data, and in the columns, you'll see the last 3 historic school years for English language arts. The percentages that you see are the percentage of kids who are at benchmark, what we call benchmark status, or at grade level at the end of the year. And so you'll see in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, we are seeing that slow, steady progress that we want to see as a result of implementing the things that we've been implementing in the last 2 to 3 years. So we are gradually creeping up every year, which is exactly what we want to do. As Dr. Redmond said, 80% is our end goal, but we're steadily working towards that year after year. That last column, the
I'm sorry,
growth.
Megan, can I clarify just
Yep.
for a second? So 80% is our end goal for students who are receiving only tier
Only
1
tier 1,
services.
yep. So when you look at that, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a question now?
Yeah, excuse me. Could you define again for me what a benchmark is, or,
Oh,
you know?
that's very, yeah.
Yeah, it's really the marker that the assessments that we use basically give us a target that students who are on that grade level, that their skills are aligning to the grade level standards for that grade level, that we would call them on grade level.
Okay, where does that number come from?
It comes through each assessment. Each assessment does that through a variety of ways, but we use nationally normed assessments to determine that. So we use assessments that lots of other school districts across the country are using, and those targets are set by those assessments.
So are these, is this, what am I trying- does this mean that that's what the average kid can do at that grade level? Is that, no?
The percentages on here, is that what you're asking?
No, this benchmark thing, does that mean that's what, if you took whatever, 100 kids, 1,000 kids, most of them are reading at that level, at that age?
If I may, Bill, I think because I remember you talking about this during a curriculum meeting like 3 years ago. They have national numbers, they have state numbers and some states set their own numbers. So please, Megan, if you would help him to explain, understand what number, are you using the national number, the state number?
Yes.
Or are
we
you
use
just
the-
using the local school districts?
We use the national number. That's really our target when we're looking at comparing our kids to kids nationwide. So that, again, that number is set to say, kindergartners should be at this specific level in the assessment nationwide, and that's up against grade level standards. So when you're looking at that it's comparing our kids to kids in Idaho who are taking the same assessment.
Okay. And I'm sorry if I'm being difficult. I
No, it's
don't want to
okay.
be. I just, again, where do you set that target? How do you set that target? Is it, are you looking at what the 50% of the kids can do? Are you looking at the top 10%? How is it determined where they're supposed to be reading? That's what I would like to know.
So what I think I hear you asking is how is this normed, right? So how do we know where they're supposed to be? And so there's criterion that are set by the core standards that say at the end of second grade, students should be able to demonstrate these skills and
Yeah,
have
okay,
this
but
level of
where
knowledge.
does that come from?
Right,
I mean, to me, it sounds, we're arbitrarily pulling a number out of the sky someplace. Where are we getting it from?
Nationally established standards.
And where are they getting it from?
I'm not sure if I have enough expertise to answer that question. I typically, the Common Core standards came from a fairly significantly large panel of folks that said, based on all of the research that we know about how kids progress through their learning, there are benchmarks at the end of each grade that students should be able to perform, demonstrate skills, show that they have knowledge of a body of things at the end of first grade and the kindergarten and the second grade. And so it was a national panel that decided what these levels are. And most states have adopted that Common Core set of standards.
These things are coming out of Common Core.
That's the sort, when Pennsylvania has a subset of those, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
But
right.
they are ultimately
you.
derived from Common Core. And really the percentage, when it's determining benchmark, it is determining you are on benchmark or you are not on benchmark, right? There are percentile considerations as well, but for the data that is here on this screen, this is the percentage of kids who were at benchmark versus not. So percentile there still does play into fact, but what you're looking at is 72% of our kindergartners were at the benchmark level or above. Many are above at the end of the year. So it's really in terms of percentage of kids it's sort of like an all or nothing kind of thing. So you'll see even in third grade, fourth grade, where we haven't made any curricular changes in approximately 12 years.
Yeah.
We are still seeing some steady progress, and we attribute this to the training that we've done with our teachers to help them understand the science of reading. And one of the biggest needs at this point, as we head into third, fourth, and then fifth and sixth grade, you can flip to the next one, Colton, is that we have a substantial need for a new ELA core resource that is aligned to the science of reading, so that our teachers have a resource that will help them ensure that the instruction that we're doing to teach skilled reading and writers is aligned to the science of reading. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I'm sorry, I'm off curriculum committee. Maybe next year. That last sentence you said with the ELA standards, would you just explain that just a little bit for folks? So
The ELA standards,
yeah, with the last sentence that you had discussed.
the ELA resource.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
so when we say an ELA resource, we really mean what program are we providing to teachers to help them deliver content to students. And so about 10, 12 years ago, the district approved Benchmark Literacy, which was a K-6 English language arts program. And again, at the time, it was a great option, but now we have a whole new body of research that shows us that there are some issues with that resource and that we need to move in a different direction. And ultimately, we want to be looking at those things about every 5 years. That's why our curriculum cycle is on a 5-year cycle. And because of various reasons, it's been a while since that has been looked at, and it is definitely time.
So that's something you think that schools should purchase?
Yes, and
And then
actually later on the
Dr.
agenda
Redwood.
tonight, we do have the proposal for a new resource that is completely aligned to the science of reading, which we firmly believe will help push especially our upper grade levels in the direction that we want to.
Right.
With our teachers having very little to pull from instructionally, we're still seeing some progress, but we firmly believe that with a better resource, they can take their knowledge that they've been gaining over the last 3 years with the science of reading, couple it with a really great resource, and we believe we're on the right path.
I'm sorry, I don't mean
No,
to be
you're good.
disruptive, but thank you. One of my questions during the work session, I might as well ask it now if it's
Yeah.
okay. Are any other school districts that you know of utilizing that resource that you're asking us to purchase? And do you have any results?
Yes.
Okay.
South Williamsport is the most local that uses it. We spent a day with South Williamsport visiting classrooms, talking to teachers, talking to administrators. And their data is very impressive. 2-3 years ago before implementation, they were running about the same split that we are here, about a
Okay.
60-40 split in some grade levels. And they are creeping up into the night, like almost 85 to 90% of kids, just
Wow.
for like first grade as an example. I think Dr. Brian was there
No,
too.
that's a-
Their data is definitely improving, and they have a very, it's nice to compare something that's relatively local and close and similar to us in many ways. So
got it. Perfect, thank you.
you're welcome. And then when we go to math, you'll see here, this is the same thing. So this is the percentage of students who are at that benchmark level at the end of the year. Something we just want to point out with the kindergarten, you might look at that row and be like, wait, what's going on? But the explanation to that is that a few years ago, we switched our math resource to one that is focused much more on depth, complexity, and critical thinking, rather than a really quick coverage of a lot of content. And when we did that, we knew that potentially in K and 1, we might see a little drop off just because the assessment that we use, this is just an example, ask kids to count to 100. In our curriculum, we ask kids to count to 50. Okay, so you know that looking at this data, okay, that explains that our assessment is asking kids to do things that we haven't asked them to do. We're not going to change instruction. We don't teach to the assessment. But you'll see what is good about this math data is that in 21-22, see how it went from 70 in kindergarten, 60 in first grade, 36 in second grade. What we were doing was not working. Kids weren't holding those skills.
Yep.
And now you see the opposite. You see that every year they're getting stronger
building.
and stronger. So this is telling us that the fact we're focused on depth and complexity and not just rushing through a whole lot of skills just to get through things is working. So you can kind of see how things are progressively getting better as we have implemented those. And really what's impressive about our math data is the growth. So if you look at second grade math, 84% of our kids met or exceeded their growth projections for the year. So not only are they increasing in their achievement, they're also growing, which is great. And then when you flip to the second math slide, you'll see here, there's some definite highlights of things that are improving. And there are some things that we're going to work on here at the middle level. Like Dr. Redmond said before, we are going to do some substantial work with making sure that tier 1 instruction is exactly what we want it and need it to be. And that's an area here at middle school math that we're going to be addressing. So that's it for English language arts and math data.
Great.
So I'll talk to you a few minutes about gifted. And referring back to Dr. Redmond and his conversation about MTSS framework. So we want you to have that in mind when you're thinking about reaching that population of students who need above and beyond. So we're looking at that 5% of students who may need something more than they're receiving in that regular education classroom. So typically 3 to 5% of our population is considered to be mentally gifted. And if you look at our trajectory in 21-22, we had 11 students with GIEPs in the district. So we recognize that there are a lot of students that we're missing in that area. So what we're doing is trying to gather our data now to determine what we need to do in order to identify more students to receive those services. And what typically happens is that students' data is evaluated through a child study process. We often have teachers who refer students for gifted services, sometimes parents. So we'll go through that referral process. We have a screening tool that's in place. Once we complete that screening tool, we will move on to a comprehensive evaluation to determine whether or not that student requires those additional supports. Typically, that's in reading, writing, and math, and they would need an area of acceleration, which is something above and beyond what they're currently receiving. So if a student has third grade math, and we know that by doing some curriculum compacting that they have already mastered a lot of those skills, we may move them on to a fourth grade classroom. Something else to consider is IQ, and we use multiple prongs when we identify students. We don't just look at an IQ score, but that is something that we do also include when we're considering that criteria. So during that evaluation process, the school psychologist gets involved, an evaluation report is completed, and if the student qualifies, we create what's called a GIEP, where goals and specially designed instruction are created for that student, and a gifted teacher works with the classroom teacher to help provide those additional layers of support. So if you look back down at our gifted growth, from 21 to 22, we were at 11. In 22 to 23, we jumped to 17. This year, 23, 24, we were at 36, and we are projecting to be at 60 by the end of 24, 25. Another thing that we put into place this year was a universal screener. So we piloted 2 different programs that we used in 2 of our elementary schools, and we're going to utilize that data to try to determine how we can pull some more of those students out to provide them with the level of support that they need. So that is what we're looking at moving forward with gifted programming. The next slide is our special education data. And this basically compares Keystone Central School District. So if you see the column that says LEA, Local Education Agency, that's Keystone Central. It compares our data to the state. And in most all areas, we are comparable to state percentages. So all of the different disability categories that are listed are some of the things that our students receive special education services for in our district. A couple of them that I will point out to you is the category of autism. Even though we are slightly lower than the state average, that category is growing in our area. We are opening a 5th autistic support classroom at the elementary level for next school year. So all of our elementary schools will have autistic support moving into the 24-25 school year. Yes.
Will that help the parents or the guardians so their child doesn't have to be, transported clear across the district just to get the services that they need?
Yes, so we worked very closely with parents. A couple of parents were not real happy because they know their child had been rooted in another school. But when we talked to them about why we wanted them to transition and go to their neighborhood school, they were very understanding. So most of the students that will receive that level of support, and I did misspeak, Mill Hall does not have autistic support, but Mill Hall has emotional support. So students from Mill Hall and Liberty Curtin will all go to that Liberty Curtin school so that we're not transporting from Liberty Curtin to Robb, which became problematic.
So we can't have anything in Mill Hall. It's just not feasible. It's not needed.
We have an emotional support classroom there, and we have emotional support at Robb as well.
Okay. So
So-
it's not needed in Mill Hall.
No, we
Okay.
just, not yet. We're
Okay.
trying to spread out our programs
Okay.
to have access for all of our students. The other one that I really wanted to point out to you, like I said, everything else is comparable, is that speech and language impairment. We are a little bit higher in that category. I will say that we have many students who come to us from early intervention who receive services in preschool that already have IEPs for speech and language, so we roll those over. We also have had some inconsistency with speech and language staff. It's been very difficult to keep a full staff. We've had to have remote therapists. This is probably, I've been here 4 years, and every year we've had different speech therapists. So With the group that we had this year, we worked through some criteria, and we're recognizing that at some point when students meet their goals, it's okay to exit them from special education. Sometimes that's a difficult thing for the speech therapist, the teachers to understand, and the parent, but it's all about accessing their curriculum. So if they've kind of maxed out and met those goals, we have been exiting more students from speech and language. So I do expect that number to go down. The next slide just shows some of the classrooms that we do have in the district. We offer a continuum of services. So again, as I mentioned, autistic support. We have 5 elementary classrooms. We have a middle school and a high school. Our life skills, we did reduce down to 1 elementary classroom this year. That population seems to be decreasing. And we did move a teacher to teach autistic support who was previously in that life skills classroom. The life skills and the middle school and the high school both have 2 classes. We have a multidisciplinary support classroom, 1 elementary and 1 middle school. We also were able to collapse the high school class this year as both of those students graduated. So we're looking ahead that we may not need to have that high school classroom for another 2 years. All of our students in every building receive learning support and/or emotional support. We do have 2 elementary classrooms for ES that are both at Mill Hall and Robb. And then speech and language is also provided in all of our buildings. The next slide just talks a little bit about the high school. At the high school level, we kind of work off of the model of, what are students going to do when they leave us? So we look at transition services. And some of the things that we offer are transition meetings with the IEP team and community agencies. And we focus on post-secondary goals, which are listed there, goals in independent living. You can turn to the next slide. We also focus on goals for employment. We have partnered with CTE, and we offer a career pathways course where about 8 of our students are supported by a special education teacher, and they participate in either a pathway to industry or a pathway to human services. So they'll go through a semester course, but they'll spend 2 weeks in each one of those courses, taking in some of that theory and some of that learning about the program, and then they do a modified assignment, and it gives them exposure to what they might want to do with their future. So we've been doing that for the past 3 years, I believe, and it's been very successful. We have a school to work program that we are hoping to grow. We are working on a job description for a job coach, which again would not necessarily be a new position, but possibly a repurposed paraprofessional position. I'm sorry, I forgot about the slides. Currently, right now, we have 7 students in our school to work program. They are only working in district buildings. So our goal is to get them out within the community, either in a volunteer or a paid position. And then we also have 77 students who are identified who are enrolled in our CTE courses. Yes.
Do you know what out of all the students, what percentage we have are special needs?
Yes, it's 19%, I believe, is on that.
19?
19.6.
Okay,
And the state is 19.3.
thanks.
Talk a little about career and tech education data, and I'll give you a couple definitions first. On the slide, the first acronym you'll see is NOCTI. That's the end of program assessment for all career and tech education students who have taken 2 years of career and tech ed in some form. They could have took it at 9th grade and 12th grade. They could have took it 11th and 12th, 10th and 12th. As long as they take 2 years, I am mandated by the state to give them the National Occupational Competency Testing Institute test. It's 2 parts. It's a written part and a hands-on part. So you have an industry professional that you bring in that gives the kids a test that's given to us by the Testing Institute. The other co-op is a student that is enrolled in the CTC that is in the school. So like a carpentry student going to work for a carpenter, a auto mechanic student going to work for an engine, somebody doing small engine work or something like that. Diversified occupations, they're the students in the school that did not take a CTE course for specific reasons. Either the program's full We don't offer what they want, or they couldn't get it in their schedule. So you might have a student that wants to be an accountant. We don't have accounting. We have accounting in the school, but it's not a CTE course, but we could put them out to work. So that's a school of work program, but it's for students who aren't enrolled in CTC at the time. Once they become a diversified occupation student, they are then considered a CTE student. So this year, 91% of our students were advanced and competent on the NOCTI exam. That's up from 82% last year. 30 co-op students were placed, 22 DO students were placed, 10 internships, and 3 job shadows. At the end of the year, we gave 2,761 industry certifications to 579 students. So they walked out of here with a piece of paper in their pocket like OSHA 10, OSHA 30. There's numerous certifications, PCT, EMT, CNA. They walked out of here with something that put them ahead of everybody else in the job market. That's up from, I think, almost 2,000 last year, just shy of 2,000. Some other data that comes sort of out of CTC, through my department, we do a lot with dual enrollment and PC Now and Commonwealth University and a bunch of other universities. There were 252 students dual enrolled. Approximately 1,108 credits were given. And approximate cost savings for the families was $852,672 for the year.
Thank you so much. When you say dual enrollment, you're talking about Penn Tech or?
Commonwealth University, Shippensburg. I'm just trying to think, Lackawanna.
These numbers speak volumes,
It does.
big time.
Yes, it would. It's very, very wonderful.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the civics exam that we're required to give. It falls under Act 35. So obviously there was a need for students not only to be productive citizens when they go into the real world, but also to understand the world they're going in and understand the government, how it works and their civic duty. So in 2018, it was written into law by Governor Wolf that every school, in lieu of adding another state assessment, every school across the Commonwealth would create a civics exam that would focus on U.S. history, government, and civics. So we embedded this course in our district. It's embedded into our 11th grade civics and government class. So you have 2 years worth of data here. This is what we self-report at the end of each year. Actually, it's in the fall for the previous school year. We have to self-report to the Department of Education our results. So it's the number of students. They're interested in how many scored a perfect 100%, how many scored below the failure mark, which ours is below a 70%, and then we look at the average. So again, our teachers then have developed the test. We look at the results, and they have been doing very well as far as monitoring what we need to instill in our students. And you can see, looking at the 22-23 school year, we had a population of 272 students. 25 students scored a 100%. There were 4 that were below the 70 mark with an average for the district of an 87%. And then this current year, student pool of 241, so it's slightly smaller, but 35 students scored a 100%. There were 3 that were below the 70, and the average was up to an 89. So again, we want students to understand what their role is in a community, not only for the workplace, but also as their civic responsibilities.
Well done.
Yeah, this is encouraging, but I do have a question. I read an article not long ago that over 50% of the high school seniors nationally cannot pass the naturalization examination. How does your examination compare with that? And how is it possible to get the naturalization exam and see
Yes.
what we do with that?
That's a point well taken. And I think from the Department of Ed, that was one of the suggestions to go to that specific exam. So we did, and a lot of the questions that are on that exam, we looked at the practice exams, and they're quite a few questions that were pulled over that are almost verbatim off of that. So that, some of it is just recall, but it is important for students to understand just some of that factual information that they need to make informed decisions. So yes, so a good portion of our exam is aligned to that exam.
Okay. Thank you.
And this was happenstance. I'm sorry, I'm just expanding a little bit. At the last vote, November, the local precincts where people were voting, there were students that were hired to work at the polls. Is that part of this class, or was that, because the teacher was incredible? Or is that just something separate for the civics class?
I can't
Yeah.
speak to that. I'm
That's
not
okay.
positive.
That's-
It
that's-
could have also been a club.
It could have been a club.
yeah.
Yep, but I'll just say
NHS, thank you.
There you go.
whoever
Thank you.
did that, it was just fantastic, because the voting, to understand what a voting is,
Yes,
okay, so thank you.
yeah, so that'd be National Honor Society.
That, you're right,
Right.
you're right, I forgot, thank you.
We also pulled some data just about our graduates and where they're heading and what they're doing as they leave our system. So we have a 95.67% graduation rate, which is great. We have 67%, about 67% of students attending a post-secondary school, and that could include 2-year, 4-year, multiple options there. We have 36 schools represented, 36 post-secondary schools that our students are going to. And that was at the data collection point there. That could change, but as of now, we have 36 schools represented, which is great. So students are going to lots of different options, lots of different paths. We have 4% who are entering the military. And then that's highlighted for some reason. But I think it says 20, I think it's 26, it's 29, thank you. 29% of students who are entering the workforce. And I'm not sure why that, that highlight shouldn't have been there, but 29% of students are entering directly into the workforce. So you can see that, that the majority of our students are heading to a post-secondary option, while some are entering the workforce and a small percentage are entering the military. So we wanted to provide that data so you know where our kids are going
That's nice.
after they have graduated.
Do we have any idea how many finish?
That's a great question. I
I'm
don't think.
great with questions. I'm not good with answers.
That's okay. Some of those are worthy of asking. And so I think we have surveys that we do put out. I think the school counselors put out surveys to the graduates. We don't have a great response rate from our graduates. Sometimes that's an email has changed, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think we have a great response rate on that to be able to get a really good read. I know it's something every district struggles with at some point, but being able to collect that data in some way, shape, or form is definitely a goal of ours, to know that not only are they going on, but are they being successful? Are they completing degrees? What are they doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now? So that's definitely something that we've been working on and something we want to improve upon, just like any other local school wants to improve upon that, because it's one thing to say this is where they're going now, but how does that look long term? So it's definitely something we want to improve upon.
Okay, so the next couple slides that you're going to see is data straight from our Swiss referral system, which is our behavioral management system. And this is where the teachers input their office discipline referrals. That's what ODR stands for. And so there's 2 years of comparative data here, and you can see that between last year and this year, all schools went down, all levels went down except for elementary. And we believe that to be because last year when we were looking at our data, we discovered that not all elementary schools were entering their data the same. So some schools were only entering the major office discipline referrals. So that was something that needed to be responded to by the principal. And we wanted to have all referrals. So if it's something that a teacher had to deal with in the classroom, they put it in as a classroom referral. So yes, the referrals increased, but now we have an accurate count of what our behaviors look like within our classrooms. So then I was curious of, well, if we're adding, if we're tracking everything, really, we're concerned about major office discipline referrals. Those are your things that your administrators absolutely have to get involved with. And that could be anywhere from, severe abusive language, arson, bomb threats, bullying, defiance in a major way, your physical aggression, things that we want to make sure that are not increasing. And as you can see, all of our levels went down with our major office discipline referrals, significantly the high school and even the middle school. So we believe that to be because this is our second year with implementing PBIS at the high school level, which we know has been a struggle and a challenge, but it's definitely paying off. And we're making sure that at the elementary and the middle levels that we're implementing it with fidelity. So we have those behavior expectations, we're doing the reteaching, and we're trying to get everybody all on the same page.
What is PBIS?
Positive behavior intervention supports. So we have a behavior matrix that says, like, in the hallway, this is what positive behavior looks like. On the bus, this is what positive behavior looks like. In the cafeteria, this is what it looks like. And we do
You
teaching.
need about a half a dozen Sisters of Mercy.
With this Swiss system, we have a great database source of information. So if you go to the next slide, this tells you where the most common location or the most common behavior that we have at each of those levels, when it is happening, and what is the perceived motivation as to why it's happening. And this is cool because every school has access to their own data. So they're using this data to also inform their staff. This is our major area that we need to address. This is when it's happening. And most of these times are during those unstructured transition times or during when. And so then they're able to be responsive and put staff in place for extra bodies. They know that we have to do more reteaching on this specific topic. They even present this information to their students to say, this is our target behavior. This is our goal. This month we had 3 physical altercations in the cafeteria. And this is unacceptable and this is not safe. And so for us to be safe in the cafeteria, this is how we have to behave. And our goal this year or next month, what can be our goal? And so then they get everybody involved on setting that goal and holding each other accountable and reminding each other that, our goal to be here and to have a good, safe environment at school is to be safe here. And this is what we have to do. So they're taking that data back to their students, which is made a big difference and put some ownership back to the students. So the next slide, we use the supports from the MTSS system that I know many of you have seen that model before to develop and apply skills, attitudes, and behaviors to help our students succeed in school and in life. And so the competencies that you can see in that circle, just kind of small: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. These are skills that are going to help our students understand and manage their behaviors, set their goals, build relationships, and make responsible decisions, whether they're in school, they're going into the workforce, they're going to school, or life beyond. And so all of those competencies and those supports are what we refer to as social emotional learning within our district. So if you hear somebody say that, these are the competencies that they're talking about. And we offer these supports for these students within classroom lessons and within classroom supports. But we're not so great right now at with our family and community partnerships. So that's something that we know that we have to strengthen for next year, and is a goal for ours, to make sure that we're collaborating better with our families and our communities to make sure that we're able to transition these skills out into family life and the communities for our students, because they're basic life skills. Yes, Elizabeth.
Ever since I can remember, that the outer circle has always been the greatest challenge, because you have so much to do on the inner circles, and I understand that. But your numbers have definitely shown that your core works have been really paying off, working. So when you look at the outside circle, I mean, not tonight, but maybe sometime in the future, let us know, Dr. Redmond, or if there's anything after you figure out how to make the outer circle, work, focus on it, you would like to see us do. If there's anything we can do to help with whatever this vision is and game plan that you folks have, okay? Because to me, partnerships in the community is the only way public school is gonna survive.
We can't do it alone, so you'll be receiving an invitation, I'm sure.
Okay.
Good
All right.
job.
But thank you.
So the next slide is just a quick representation. So these are all of our available social emotional wellness supports from our MTSS framework. And it's color coded for a reason. Again, going back to the green, that's tier 1 supports for all of our students. So this is what all of our students receive. And again, we're hoping that 80% of our students can meet their goals with that level of support, and knowing that some are going to need more. And those are the types of supports that we have to offer that are in the yellow. And again, that's just 15% of our students. And then that typically happens within a small group setting. So just to kind of give you an idea, it's not one-on-one. And then in the red is our tier 3 level of supports. And that again is just for like our 5% who need that more direct one-on-one support. And that might happen in our schools. That might be something that happens. We've connected our students with a resource that they provide that support outside of school. So we're continuing to try to develop those levels of support and to make sure that we're hitting on all of their needs. And my last slide is just to kind of give you an example of where do we get that data? How do we know kind of what our students need? And in the graph, we have represented the scores from the SABRS and My SABRS. And SABRS, it stands for Social, Academic, Emotional, Behavioral Risk Screening. And it's really a mouthful for just 20 questions that we ask students in grades 2 through 12. There's about 20 questions that they answer, and then we have their teachers answer similar questions. And it's really important. Go ahead.
About the students or about the teachers?
About the students. So the
Okay.
students answer questions about themselves, the teachers answer questions about the students.
Okay, thank you.
And so you can see it's really important to capture that student feedback, because this is a great way for us to catch those internalizers that maybe are not acting out. And that's typically what you're going to see reported from the teachers. But look how many students rated themselves higher for high risk or some risk compared to how the teachers rated them. So that's another great way for us to check in with them to make sure that we can meet their needs, even though it may not be so glaring. And then just real quick, other ways that we do it. Every school has a SAP program, a student assistance program. And that is a program that students can refer themselves, peers can refer a friend, parents can refer their student, teachers can refer their student. And they're referred for any reason that they might be struggling. If they're struggling academically, consistently, why? And let's try to figure out how to support them. And that could be an intervention done in school, that could be a group, that could be one of the other resources that we have, or maybe that's us referring them outside for additional support that's beyond what we're able to offer them. And then we have tier 2 referral teams in each of our schools, and they are looking at behavioral, attendance, and academics. So again, if anything pops up there, they can make sure that they're getting that student in the correct support group for whatever of the reason is, that we can figure out how to best support them.
So I'm going to talk to you briefly about attendance, and obviously attendance is very important because if we don't have students in school in front of teachers, it makes it hard for them to participate in instruction and ultimately learn. So what you see on the slide is our average daily attendance. So 22, 23 to 23, 24. So our average daily attendance, about 91% of the students are in attendance of school. And it has kind of flatlined there. And the reason that I point that out, if you go to the next slide, if you start to look at the nationwide average, it has the nationwide average, the rate of chronic absenteeism. So that's what we look at. So that's defined as missing at least 10 days or 10% of school days. So in our 180 days, a student that misses 18 days would be or more in a year is considered chronic absenteeism. So that number has nearly doubled starting pre-pandemic back in 2018 to 19 and on. It's about 30%. It increased by 30% across the nation. So not just within the state, but across the nation. So when you look at our daily average attendance rate, staying status quo at that 91, that's well below that 30. We didn't see that 30% increase. And we spend a lot of time working with families, the magistrate, children and youth, doctors, to try to ensure that we can get students to school and kind of keep a pulse on them, because if they're not here and they're at home, makes it hard for us to get them out of the home. That's something that has to happen for them to arrive here in order for us to instruct them. So the one thing I did want to point out, a lot of people, like students get sick or they have an injury or for whatever reason they can't come to school, they go to the doctor, which is fantastic. We definitely want them to get the care that they need. In the past year, just this year alone, we received a little over 11,000 doctor's notes, which is great. But that counts toward that 18 days. Doesn't mean it's separate from truancy in the law, but I just wanted to kind of debunk that myth that if a child brings a doctor's note in, that doesn't count toward absenteeism. It absolutely does. So for a student, just for your understanding, for any reason they're not in the building on a school day, it counts toward that chronic absenteeism rate.
Okay, so I have a question for you now.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about students with 504s. Okay, how does that come into play with these numbers?
What's a 504?
504 is a medical disability, and it's one of those, it's kind of like an IEP,
Okay.
only it's for medical reasons.
Where, yeah,
Yeah.
physically, it's difficult to get into.
It counts. So it doesn't count for truancy, which I'll get to in the next slide, but it does count for the chronic absenteeism. So
It'll always count against like our district's attendance rate. So regardless if they have a 504 or an IEP or what have you, or even if they just turn in a doctor's excuse, it doesn't count towards that child's attendance, but it does count ultimately against the district's attendance rate because they're not in school 90% of the time typically. And that's how they calculate our regular attendance rate. Elizabeth.
Thank you. This is a question I've wanted to ask for years. And if we don't have an answer tonight, that's fine. And I just remembered to ask it. Is there anything that Pennsylvania Public Schools can do, let's say on a Saturday legally, or on at the end of the school year, that if the student was truant for 18 days and you have some sort of agreement with the parent, guardian, what have you, that if they take that class outside of the regular 180 days, is that possible to do that in Pennsylvania, or is that something that no school district has ever done? Do you, you be a makeup
Yeah,
day?
it's possible in terms of credit attainment and course completion, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the attendance
Okay,
data.
thank you. That
It
was
just
my
helps
question.
kids academically move forward, but the attendance is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so that would be based, so the chronic absenteeism or the attendance is based on our defined school year, first day of
180.
school last, yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Chris has a question.
These numbers are K through 12? Okay, so you've got all the walking culture dishes from there, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha, Yeah.
Is a big chunk of the truancy. Do you know how much of it is kids that don't want to come to school because they don't like this school or afraid because of the violence? Is there any correlation there?
I mean, you'll always, in any school district, have students that fall into that, but we don't have any one. I mean, there's a multitude, a medical issue. We have some students with severe medical issues that just,
Well, that's a valid reason.
yes.
But I'm
And then you
talking the
you do
kids that
have,
are afraid to come to school.
That
Or
will come
just-
out in the SAKE meeting. So when if you miss 3 days unlawfully, which means you didn't turn in an excuse, we're legally bound to have a student attendance improvement conference meeting, which is, it sounds big and scary, but really it's just like, hey, you have 3 unlawfuls. What's going on? How can we help? What do we need to know? How can we, intervene? How can we support you or your family? And a lot of times that is where that information, that's where that information should come out if they haven't let us know. So sometimes they do let us know. And we certainly are responsive to that at that point, because we certainly wouldn't want that to continue. However, they don't always let us know that until maybe it goes into before the magistrate. And then that's when it comes out. And then at that point, we're now at the table because we've made some adjustments with the magistrate, which has been really great and really helpful. So our administrators and our counselors are at the table when we had those court hearings, and then we're able to be responsive then too. So it should never, ever carry on like that. And if it does, then, we certainly would want to know about it because it's not okay.
Okay. Thank you.
so Christina had mentioned about our student attendance improvement conferences. So after that third day, and again, 3 unlawfuls, that could be, I sent the note in with my child and they simply didn't turn them in, or as a parent, I just forgot about it and I didn't turn it in. I was like, well, it's just 1 absence. And then that accrues to 3. Once you get to 3 unlawful, it triggers us to contact the parent. We meet with the parent student and just to see what's going on. Could be a case, I go to work before my child gets on the bus. So when I leave, I'm assuming they're getting on the bus and sometimes they don't make it onto the bus. So those are the things that we put into place. We have those conversations. So is there a neighbor that can check on them to say, hey, you need to get on the bus today, or things like that. And there's sometimes parents just need some extra support. It could be as simple as, how are you getting up in the morning? And do you need an alarm clock? So it might be just a resource, or just helping them think through how to ensure, or giving them, again, here are the options for you to turn in an excuse. You don't send it to your child, email it. Here's who you need to email it to. So we held 505 attendance meetings. And again, it's the purpose of it is to try to look into the situation to prevent future absences.
What can we as a board do to help you curb that? Yeah, it is. Yes, it is.
We can, if they maybe discuss it and then let us know, okay?
Yeah.
That's part of our job.
Yeah, and again, I think it's just a group effort. I guess if you hear of someone who's struggling to make it to school, find out why, or let the appropriate school know so we can look into that more. I think if we could crack that problem, we could all just kind of take that show on the road to every school and say, here's how you can improve your attendance.
And part of that is always continued community partnerships as
Mhm.
well, community resources to connect families and students with that.
That's where we need to,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my vision where we should go.
Mhm.
It's not a school issue, it's a community.
That's exactly, yep.
It's not a school issue, it's a community issue. It takes all of us.
All right, so at the beginning, we had talked about being school-aged or truant. So a student upon entry of kindergarten up until their 18th birthday, they are considered by law school age. So that means if I'm in kindergarten and I haven't reached my 18th birthday on a school day, that's where I'm expected to be. Otherwise, you're violating the law. So once you get through the process after the 6th unlawful, so you would have had your meetings already. We tried to put some supports in place. Still, the attendance is an issue. Upon that 6th unlawful, that's where a citation is issued. So we had written approximately 295 citations in regards to truancy. And then it goes to the magistrate, various things happen there. If it still continues, then it goes back to the courts, and then students can be placed on what's called a motion to compel. It's basically a court order stating if school's in session, that's where you're at. So then the student violates that, they violate their court order, and you have supports with children and youth in there, as well as the school supports, and there's a lot of extra eyes watching the student at that point.
So they're forced to come back to the brick and mortar building.
Not always. They could be cyber
Because-
or,
okay,
so,
that's what-
so an
that's what I was
example, a
hoping to hear.
cyber student
Okay.
may have to report to a specified office at the county to work.
Great.
So again, extra eyes on that student.
And just to clarify, students in kindergarten through sixth grade are not cited. They are, we have to do what's called a truancy referral to children and youth. And again, they're looking at how can they be supportive and help this family. It's not, a negative referral, but clearly there's issues that they need to help address. And so should that child continue then to miss after those supports have been put in place, then they'll go before Judge Miller, and then he could put them on a motion to compel. So most of our motions are at the elementary age.
Sure, that makes sense.
I will actually make a comment that the district magistrate is a wonderful person.
Mhm.
I have actually worked with her on one of these cases, and she is becoming more and more educated in what's going on. And I like the way in which she's doing things to get things
Absolutely.
moved forward.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
mean, she's looking out for what is best for the students,
Yep.
so.
She's doing a great job.
Glad to hear that. It's encouraging.
All right.
That's a precedent. Thank you.
All right, deep breath. We're almost there. So you heard a lot of data so far tonight, a lot of data that shows that we're really moving in a good direction. And that's a testament to the students, their families, the stakeholders within the community, the board of directors, our admin team, the teachers in the buildings, the support staff, et cetera. So there's a lot of really great things that are happening. But guess what? We're not happy about that, right? We want to continue to grow and push the direction forward, right? We need to work as a team, as a school community, to make sure that these systems are in place, these structures are in place for support to continue to push this data forward. The good news is when you look at all those points that we had in those slides, we are making progress in the right areas, right? We're doing the right things the right way, is what we want to say, right? If you look, the data shows that our comprehensive school district is the best options for students in this area. It provides the best option for students to be both prepared for the military, for college, or for work right out of high school. We have endless opportunities and pathways here. I'm not going to read down through all of the points on because it's just rehashing a lot of that data, but it points to the fact that we are a great comprehensive school district that provides these opportunities. And to bring some validity to that data, I want to go to the next slide because throughout the year, and I shouldn't say the year because I've only been here since October, I did set up some meetings with about 60 students, and I'm looking to push that even further and reach different levels, basically meetings in all schools next year. I know Dr. Redmond had a number of meetings with students as well to provide a lot of feedback from them on a lot of different areas. We also had some culture and climate survey data that we were able to look into that we will talk about in the future as well. But I really wanted to pull out a number of points that came out from those meetings. And these were students from all different walks of life. Like, I didn't just say, give me the best of the best. I want to talk to them because you just know what they're going to say, and they're going to say great things. I pulled everybody that I could, a cross section of our whole population. I know Dr. Redmond did as well. And the surveys do pull that. And once we get to that in the future, you'll get to see some of that breakdown. But some of the key points off of that that really struck me was that students did think that school is important for their later life. The majority of those students did realize that it is important for later life.
I'm sorry, distraction, but What age group were you focused on, if you don't mind me asking? So-
Honestly, it ran the whole gamut. It didn't go too deep into the elementary schools. It was middle to high school
Sure, okay, thank
levels.
you.
But that would be, but it was a cross section of a lot of different grade levels.
Okay, thank you.
They are receiving meaningful work, so the work that's being assigned to them, they do feel is important and will help them in their growth. They enjoyed being in school this past year. There's ample opportunity to meet with teachers as needed. They have chances to participate in class. They feel safe in school. They receive praise from their teachers. And they have plenty of community, job-related, volunteer, and school-sponsored activities to choose from. So just hearing that, again, it's a sample size, right? But hearing those common themes amongst them, because it was the same questions asked, and the majority of them were giving these kind of responses. It was really good to hear that things are moving in a good direction. And so to continue to do the right things the right way as a school community team together. So that wraps up our data presentation. Probably my part.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. That's a lot of information. Yes, Elizabeth.
Yeah, just maybe next year, if this is what the group and the assistants and the superintendent would like, but I would really be curious, another one, I've been waiting for years to ask this question. And not to show that this is not pointing fingers at teachers or instructors, it's not. But correlating data, how many classrooms don't have certified instructors in that classroom that day per month, in what building and what grade? And see if that data, if there's any overlaps or anything else that correlates with anything else, because that's one thing the school board we've never talked or seen is how many days there is no certified instructor in that particular room, what grade, how many per month in that building. Okay, because that'll help us for the future maybe. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Next,
job, everybody.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you.
next we have a presentation on athletic and co-curricular participation.
So hello, Mr. Polito wasn't unable to be with me this evening, but we had worked on this together along with our athletic secretary, Kelly Wark. And so one of the things that was posed to us earlier in the year is some looking for some information in regards to participation at both Central Mountain High School as well as Bucktail High School, as well as both middle schools. And so we've compiled some information that I just want to briefly be able to share to you. And then again, it will be shared with you for your future reference. If you have any additional questions at a later time, be glad to discuss. And so I won't go into detail with every slide. There are a few things that I think that need to be highlighted in respect to both schools. And so I'll just try to share that information with you. So this representation is for Central Mountain High School for the fall. If you notice across the graphs, the lighter color blue is 22-23 with the darker being 23-24 this past school year. Central Mountain, you'll see the majority of sports maintained or showed increases in participation. One area in particular that did show a greater increase was the marching band. And so that was an area that we noticed this past school year. We almost doubled, added over 30 students within our band. And I thought that was really important, as often they're not looked at as a sport, but they're in our extracurricular activities. And I think Mrs. Kress has done a great job to continue to build that program. The next slide would be the winter sports. And so within the winter sports, majority of winter sports, again, maintain participation numbers as compared to the previous year. One of the areas that I did note in this one, and again, comes back to all of you as you were involved in this process, but girls wrestling was sanctioned by the PIAA this past year. From the previous school year to this year, we more than doubled our participation. We had 13 young ladies involved. We had a state qualifier in the state wrestling tournament. And so based upon my conversations with Mr. Caprio, we look for that program just to continue to expand it. And again, I thank you for years of work and getting that into place. Next would be the spring sports at Central Mountain. Again, not a lot of variance. One that went down a little bit was boys tennis. And again, we still performed very well within the boys tennis program, had our state champ repeat in David Lindsay this year. And so his second time. And so again, I think one of the aspects that is most represented is our programs are staying, consistent, sometimes showing some increases in from year to year. And you can see slight variations, but I think overall, we've really been able to sustain our programs and we're having a lot of success with that. This particular graph shows a representation, and I think it's important, as you'll see later on when we look at Bucktail, one of the differences in the size of the schools. And so at Central Mountain, a lot of the students play one sport. There's about a third of the students that do play two sports, and very, very few play in all three seasons. I think that's, again, the size of the sports, the number of activities, as there's more opportunity for sports and athletics here just because of the greater size of the population. But I also think when we look at our co-op opportunities, we've had some conversation. We try to make as many of those programs available as we possibly can. So this particular slide, again, is in reference to clubs. One of the things that we noticed as far as our clubs, there were some variations. One of the key things I think that the board needs to understand is the items represented here are paid clubs. These are clubs that require someone to be an advisor and require additional hours outside of the school day. And so sometimes that comes in a conversation. We also offer a lot of clubs during the day. And so this is not a list of all of those, but these would be more the ones that are represented within the paid activities. You can see, again, we've sustained certain clubs showed some decrease while others showed significant increase. But again, I think in all those cases, we've got a good representation of what we're trying to offer. And then we've done a nice job to survey students to find out with our other offerings throughout the school day, what they are interested in, and try to design and find individuals that maybe have that skill set or able to support with those club opportunities. This again is as an additional, one of the things I felt like it was very important to point out, as I know this is frequently something, two of the clubs that are most participated in, FFA, as well as Skills USA. Again, aligned to our CTC programs, lots of students that are working in those areas. And I again give Mr. Lynch a lot of credit with that. When you look at those opportunities, his students in those programs are continuing to be involved in different opportunities that are presented to them. And so we've had students perform very well in both the FFA as well as Skills USA.
Excuse me. What is Skills USA? There's something coming up later in the meeting that we have to say their kids are going to a competition there.
Yep. Well, you better get over the mic, buddy.
So Skills USA is the national club for CTE programs, for the current tech programs. And FFA is directly related to the agricultural programs. And you have coming up, you have 4 students going to nationals that won states, and now they're going to nationals. And
Is that the first time we've gone to nationals? I don't remember.
no, we've been pretty consistent since I've been here. I think
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't remember. Okay, thank you.
here back 5. I think every year almost they've gone.
Was it gone? Because I know.
Yeah, they
states,
go
but I didn't
pretty
remember.
much. Usually get 1 or 2 to go. This year we have 4.
Great.
How do they compete? What exactly do they do?
So they do a regional competition, then they go to a state competition, but there's competitions with each in area of CTE. So you have a group of health occupation students going. They did the Stop the Bleed as a community project. And you have a girl in technical mathematics that's out of drafting and design.
Okay.
That is one states also. So you compete against all your regions. You go regional, states, and if you win states, you can go to nationals.
Thank you.
Yep.
So again, this is Central Mountain Middle School representation again of their fall sports. Very similar in the patterns to the others. We've maintained, shown some slight increase or decreases across various different sports. In the winter season, again, very similar data from year to year, 42, 43, 25, 25. And so again, I think it speaks to the programs that we're offering, that kids are continuing to stay interested. And again, year to year, there may be a little bit stronger interest, or as students move on from grade level to grade level, they may change in the opportunities they seek. In the spring, the only thing at the middle school that is offered is track. But one of the areas that I did want to point out is if you notice in the junior high girls track, there was a significant increase. We did have 2 new junior high track coaches this year. Some of you are familiar with Mrs. Onasconich, and she has done a variety of different things. And so she has really encouraged a lot of the young ladies. So our track numbers more than doubled this past year. And so we saw over 60 athletes involved in track at the middle school level. Again, just some representation in regards to the number of students playing 1 sport, 2 sports, or 3 sports. And again, very similar to the high school. As far as clubs, again, these would be the paid clubs for Central Mountain Middle School. Noticing one of the areas that showed the greatest increase was school-wide positive behavior. And so that is a club that has existed at the middle school for many years, and they're continuing to grow it and involve more students in that process. Go ahead.
Dave, I'm sorry, your slide seems to be
Oh,
one behind, but that's
me
okay.
that's behind.
Yeah, that's okay, but I just want to, it's a
Thank
great
you.
presentation.
Yeah,
So
thank
that's
you.
all.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
So at Bucktail, you'll notice some of the sports from up there. Make sure I'm on the right one. Okay. And so again, I think Bucktail has shown that they've sustained their numbers year to year. Some, again, slight increase, decrease across their sports. This is a representation of sports throughout their year. And so football and tennis in the fall, as well as cheer, basketball in the winter, and baseball, softball in the spring. From the junior high sports perspective, again, you see that there was an increase in junior high football last year, as well as was basketball this season. And so again, in a much smaller school with less students that can participate, I think they've done very well to maintain and again, show increase in their participation. This particular slide is what I referenced earlier. One of the things, and Butch and I have talked about this at times, I'm not multitasking very well. But one of the things I think in our conversations that you do see at Bucktail is a lot of their students play multiple sports. And so they are involved in all 3 seasons. If you look at that data from that standpoint, most are playing 2 or 3 sports at different points of the year. And knowing that to manage a season from an academic standpoint, as well as an athletic standpoint, and to do that all year long, really speaks volumes about the students there and the type of attitude and effort they're putting into those things. Clubs, again, a similar representation to the other schools as to what is offered. There may be some new information there. I know Chorus was one where the numbers weren't so big, but I know that that's a new program that they're working to develop at Bucktail. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Dave,
I have just one question.
Go ahead, Paulie.
So I know that there were some concerns about how many trips that we had last year. Will we see that number increase this year?
Sorry, Paul, you cut out just a little bit there.
Track meets, are they
Track
going to
meets.
increase?
Yeah. And so one of the things with the track meets is a lot of schools don't have junior high track. And so in some of those cases, we've done tri meets and less individual. Another barrier that we've had sometimes with track is it requires over 20 people to be able to work a track meet. It's very difficult at times to be able to find that many individuals to be able to support and work with. I have talked with Coach Sikorskas as well as Coach Zettel throughout. And so we're certainly going to look at trying to increase that. One of the other opportunities we talked about is looking at some more of the invitational opportunities where we may not be at home, but trying to create more opportunities for kids to compete.
When you say workers, do you mean volunteers?
We pay and we still don't have individuals that
Oh, I
are
didn't-
willing. And so,
Well, I'm sorry, I'm really out of the loop, but maybe that's something
Yeah.
to get the word out.
yeah, one of the things that really helped us with the junior high meets was that the varsity coaches and varsity track athletes helped to support. Unfortunately, they can't support when they're having their own meets. It's the senior
Sure,
high
I
meets that are much more difficult. We've got a lot of great parents that are trying to volunteer and different things, but it does present some issues. We can't just pull people out of the stands because of the clearances and different things that go on. So it's an area that we know we've identified as a concern, and we'll continue to try to look for. We're already advertising for next year for help. We do find that across different sports that it sometimes is difficult to find individuals that want to work the scoreboard or want to work different opportunities. So it's something that we know we're going to try some new avenues to spread the word and see if we can get more individuals interested.
Great, thank you. Good
Dave, I have a
luck.
question.
Sure.
Do you have any idea how many students from Bucktail participate at Central Mountain for different sports?
As far as the co-op,
Yes.
yeah.
And what sports are they?
Yeah, I know we do in wrestling, obviously, that is one. We did have one student that expressed an interest in volleyball, but then did not pursue that. That would be another area that we've tried to, Jim and I go back and forth on those conversations. And we talked a little bit about at some of our other meetings, committee meetings and stuff, and seeing what programs are. There are not a ton. As some of the programs that we've offered, swimming, cross country, some of those things that we do have co-op agreements. We've not had a Bucktail student participate in 4 to 5 years in some of those programs. And so we've maintained our co-op agreements. The co-op agreement, it costs us $100. It's a one-time thing. And so we've talked about those things. Jim was doing some surveys up there just to see if more students are interested or if there's other opportunities they would like to pursue. But right now, a very limited number of students are coming down to make that connection.
So it's primary wrestling.
Yeah.
Primarily wrestling.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Any other
Great.
questions?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Okay. Next up, we'll have hearing of visitors. We have quite a few signed up tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to read that Keystone Center School Board of Directors encourages public comments from its citizens. Each committee member may speak for a period of no longer than 4 minutes per board policy. Please understand that this is not a time of dialogue or for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in further deliberation. Or individuals' email addresses are on the website. If you'd like to contact your individual board representative, we ask you please direct complaints of a personal nature regarding individual employee directly to the superintendent. And the only other thing I was going to comment, I noticed we have 2 of our board members actually signed up to speak this evening. I'm going to remind you, if you go out and speak from the table, you're speaking as the citizens, not speaking for the board, you're speaking for yourself. And as board members, you do have the opportunity during any discussion period for any of the items we talk about to discuss it there. So if you'd like to go out and. First up, we have Michelle Whitney. And she's speaking about the budget. I think she's on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Just barely.
Barely.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
That's
Better, a little better.
I cannot share video, so if you can hear me, I'll just go.
Go ahead, Michelle. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Here we are, ready to approve another tax hike without a lick of regard for taxpayers, regardless of whether they are homeowners or business owners. It's ironic that taxpayers are expected to live within their means while the board spends frivolously purchasing $170,000 vape sensors, funding boondoggles to places like Georgia, Nashville, and Pocono water parks, all in the name of improving education for the students, and a $22 million brand new school for 150 students. I'm sorry, the results I'm observing don't match the costs associated with them. Regardless, we're expected to continue to feed this monster that has been created. We hear the same old mantra, our district is not fairly funded. It's Harrisburg's fault. It's the legislator's fault, so on and so on, but that's not true at all. The district has an excess of at least $18 million in reserve funds, indicating it's not only well-funded, but excessively so. School districts by law can only raise taxes with voter approval if their fund balances fall below a certain threshold. What KCSD is doing is a bit of a shell game by moving money into a reserve account. By doing this, it allows the district to make a case to raise property taxes. Oh, look at the general fund, we don't have any money, but really you do. This is a common yet questionable practice throughout Pennsylvania. PA Auditor General Tim DeFore released a report in January of 2023 after auditing 12 PA districts. KCSD was not one of them. He found multiple districts were flush with cash as they promulgated a narrative of underfunding. Sound familiar? Yes, KCSD is not the only district playing the unsavory game. The Commonwealth Foundation has tracked the growth of all 500 school district reserve funds since 2012. The reserve funds of all districts combined increased nearly 33%. They're finding a way around the law, and you guys are too. Of course, just because others are doing it doesn't make it the right thing to do. The intent of the law is that you ask the voters to raise school taxes in a referendum. This procedure provides transparency. It allows them to choose whether they want to support the district's position or whittle their spending back. By playing this shell game of hoarding massive reserves, you are purposefully disassociating the district from taxpayers and ramrodding tax hikes through, which is immoral and unethical. You are circumventing and ultimately silencing the voice of taxpayer voters. Your vote for another tax hike would indicate a disregard for the intent of the law, as you choose to increase taxes while holding over $18 million in excess funds in a reserve account. Tonight's vote will show the people your respect for them as taxpayers, as well as your respect for the law, and will show the people who you really, really work for. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, I have Chris Gabb.
Can I do it from here or do I gotta go there?
Because you're not speaking as a board rep,
Okay.
you're speaking as a citizen. I prefer you go there, please.
All right. All right, when I came in here tonight, I have to say first that I was surprised, Frank knows it, or Dr. Redmond, sorry about that. I don't ask for any recognition, nor do I want any. But when I came in and found this thank you note on the desk for helping out with Special Olympics, it really tugged at the heartstrings. These kids are far worse off than ever I was. Sunday will be my 11th anniversary of my accident. And I saw these kids that have been born with their issues out there kicking butt and taking names. And I want to say, congratulate those kids. They deserve these, and the teachers and people that work with them. That speaks volumes. The second thing I want to talk about is not from me, it is from the public. There was a survey that went out and asking for questions on how the school was doing and different things, and it went out through a Class Dojo, and it became a huge issue because anybody in the world could answer it. And my phone was ringing off the hook. My emails, I brought some of them. How can we even let this happen? That's a security thing. There were people answering the survey as many times as they wanted, and a lot of them didn't even have kids in the school. So I think if we're going to do a survey from now on, we need to make sure there's some more security on it. Because I have it here, I have everything here. I thought it was all a bunch of junk. So I went in and took a survey myself. I shouldn't even been able to get into it because I'm not even on the Class Dojo. I did talk to Dr. Redmond about it, and he said that it was something that was done that was put out publicly and shouldn't have been. I understand that. But I think we need to answer all the people that are asking questions about this and put out a statement. It was done in error or whatever, but the people are still asking me what was done about it and why. So I'm just gonna say that that's something we should put out on the website or whatever and give people an answer. That's it.
Thank you. Next, Wendy Zimmerman.
Good evening, board members of the school board, the secretaries, and Dr. Redmond. My name is Wendy Zimmerman. I'm the building secretary at Liberty Curtin Elementary School, and I thank you for this opportunity for letting me speak here tonight. In keeping with the Liberty Curtin construction timeline, our current building was scheduled to start asbestos abatement on June 10th, which is this past Monday. Prior to that date, it was necessary to pack up all the areas scheduled to be abated. That meant 2/3 of our building needed to be boxed up and stored until the abatement was finished. That was a tremendous undertaking, to say the least. I want to take this time to thank the amazing Liberty Curtin teachers for sorting through their classrooms, labeling their boxes, storing their personal items at home, and working together to get their rooms and common areas ready to be moved by June 6th. Our teachers are an amazing group and attack this daunting task in true Liberty Curtin spirit and a little bit of humor. I am so blessed to be able to work with them each day. A special thanks to the Property Services Department for your extremely quick response when we continually ask for more boxes to accommodate our needs. I guess we just didn't realize how much stuff we really have. The Property Services staff that came on June 6th was able to remove shelving from closets and classrooms in a very safe and efficient manner. These guys are the best. Thank you to Principal Umbenhauer for keeping us informed of the construction and abatement timelines, getting what we needed to make the packing go smoother, and keeping us focused on the end result. You are a true asset to our building, our students, and our community. I look forward to working with you for many, many more years. Last but not least, a very, very special thank you to the best custodial staff and managers for this excellent teamwork it took to come into our building, move furniture, boxes, and equipment into areas that are not being abated. This team of staff worked very tirelessly that day, and to see their teamwork was like watching a well-oiled machine. They were able to move and store all materials in the existing open spaces and classrooms in the building. I feel that's unbelievable. You are an amazing group of hard workers, and I'm so grateful for your help. Your hard work did not go unnoticed. Unfortunately, we will need everybody back before the end of the summer to move everything back into the classrooms. I really look forward to seeing everybody again. We also get to do this again over this next summer in June of 2025 when we get ready to move into our new building. Thank you, school board members, for making our new building one step closer to becoming a reality, and for your continued support of our students and staff.
Thank you. Next up, Tom Cannon.
I'm gonna start this off with board member or public, doesn't matter. This letter was put in my mailbox. Dear Mr. Cannon, I am the parent of a Keystone School District student. I'm going to read this word for word. After hearing you speak at the last school board meeting, I know that you truly have the student's best interest in mind. My daughter rides a bus and has been targeted of bullying, the target of bullying. I have brought this to the attention of the administrators. I was told that they would handle this situation, that I did not need to go any further with this matter. This was untrue. The district has become a disgrace to the educational system. If it does not have something to do with the football team or building new schools, no one seems to care about the real reasons for having a school system. I had thought about trying to talk to my regional representative, but he is a do-nothing puppet of the administration, and it would not do my daughter any good. It may even make things worse for her. I have seen how when the public brings up something that the board cowards does not want to get any attention, they just sit there on their thrones and stare blankly off as they pretend to not even care or not even hear the concerns. Since you are a board member that does not follow the others, I am very hopeful that you will shine light on yet another failure of these clowns. I hope that you read this concern at a public meeting for all to hear. In case you're wondering, I live in Region 4. May God watch over you on this adventure of yours. Sincerely, a concerned parent of a very scared child. Now, why am I getting a letter like this in my mailbox? I want an answer. I got probably 3 minutes. I'm going to sit here and wait. Nobody's got nothing.
It's not an open dialogue between us. I read that statement earlier.
Okay.
So
Well, everybody, there's your cowards. They won't answer. They won't speak up. They tell you they're concerned about children. I get a letter in my mailbox from somebody that doesn't even live in my town. I don't represent them as their representative, and I get a letter in my mailbox. That's kind of concerning to me. Should be concerning to everybody. So you can tell me when my time's up, because I'm going to sit here.
if you have nothing else, I'd like to move on to the next person.
Well, I got 4 minutes. I'm not happy either, Butch. I can see that look in your face, and I'm not happy either. I got this letter in my mailbox. Why? Why are people coming to my house? I came here to this board to help people. Now I got people showing up at my house. I don't like visitors. You know, I have a family. Maybe this guy, maybe it wouldn't be a letter the next time. What are you going to say then? Well, we can't respond. Is that going to be the response? We can't respond. Sure, you got threatened physically, but we can't respond because it's a no dialogue.
Your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Martin Lewis. I don't see Martin. Did he leave?
He did.
I don't see him on the video. Next, Greg Walker.
Good evening. My name is Greg Walker. I am a father of 4 children and a taxpayer in the school district. I am speaking on the subject of an agenda item you'll be voting on tonight. You are asked to vote on whether or not you're going to sign a contract with Nittany Learning Services, or NLS. I respectfully and adamantly suggest that you vote no. Some of you will remember I came here just over a year ago and addressed the board to a bigger audience about dysfunction at the school. We had quite a bit of very reliable inside information. Nittany Learning Services was in the school then and was the source of much of that dysfunction. I had described them variously as dangerously ineffective. They also entered the schools based on a conflict of interest. The head of student services here is married to the owner of NLS. If Shannon Manning still has anything to do with NLS, the conflict of interest is absolute. We will report it to the state and to the taxpayer. Let's look at the numbers. In this contract that I have here, you'll be paying for the year $165,000 for helping 10 children. To put that into perspective, a common outpatient therapist will have a caseload of 60 and will earn 1/3 that much. We understand that you have the authority to tax and spend. I am proud to support the schools. I believe in public schools, but please be wise with money. Remember, it is not your money. The contract also mentions travel costs, but provides no numbers. I assume they will be transporting some of these kids to Pleasant Gap. Commutes are educational dead time, and transportation can be expensive. We have numbers from academic year 1920. That's not 1920, 100 years ago. It's just a few years ago. What did it cost? $300,000 for transportation. I noticed in the contract, they don't mention numbers. And that was just to haul a few kids to Williamsport. That's less than 10. So let's add it up. $165,000 plus $300,000 is approaching $500,000. This may be where the money is. Like shipping and handling. You got a deal, but you have to pay shipping and handling. That is a significant little portion of our whole budget. We have grass to cut. We have lab equipment to maintain. We have technology to buy. This is not rational. It's not rational to me. It's probably not rational to you. But it's rational to somebody who's making a lot of money. And there is a conflict of interest.
All right, Mr. Walker, I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap it up. then.
I'd like to hear him continue.
So,
Does anybody else
Yeah.
feel that way?
I'd like to hear the rest of it.
Well,
Absolutely.
actually, I was just about wrapped up.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. My children are getting a lot out of their education, and we very much respect our public schools, and we want them to work more efficiently. Thank you, and effectively.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Next, Claire Bowman.
Good evening. As the 2023-2024 school year came to a close, we celebrated our seniors with the different end of year events such as Senior Sunrise and Baccalaureate. I would also like to mention our softball team. This year they had a historic season, not only for the win at districts, not only when they won districts, but they also made it to the state semifinals. We are so proud of them and all they accomplished. This was definitely a season to remember. CMHS also had our end of year band and orchestra concerts and final send off for the seniors' graduation. I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the graduating class for attending graduation. Your support this year has been essential to the student and student government success. Speaking of student government success, this year with help from administration, students, Mr. Maidenford and Mrs. Caldwell, and of course the board, we have made huge progress, including getting weekly meetings with our principal, Mr. Borelli, doing a trial run for staggered release at the end of the day, giving a presentation about student government to all the 8th graders at the middle school, planning elections for next school year, and so much more. We plan to keep tackling important issues that students and teachers are facing over the course of next school year and can't wait to elect new members and continue our work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you for being part of it.
Yep, you've done a great job this past year.
Next, we're gonna have a superintendent's report.
I have used the restroom. I've been sitting here since 5:30, so I'm not sure what the right protocol is. Should I just excuse myself? Do we have to stop the meeting? But I've been sitting here since 5:30, so.
I would suggest we take a 5-minute break then.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. So,
Okay, do you need motion for that?
I think we're just gonna take a 5-minute break. Next up, we're gonna have the superintendent's report.
I'm going to keep my report pretty short.
Mr. Roger.
So on Monday and Tuesday of this week, the principals and instructional central office team attended a retreat together. We spent two very long days immersed in learning on how to lead our system to improve the climate in our schools, to increase the effectiveness of our tier 1 support systems for kids, and what experiences, supports, and expectations we create for all of our students. We talked about how to support our professional learning communities to support our staff. And at the same time, we coalesced as a team with our new members. That's Dr. Zangara, myself, and Jeff Williams, which were relatively new additions to the team. So that was earlier this week. We have several open positions for custodians across the district. We're looking at how we advertise to ensure we have a wide range of avenues to get the word out. We're in the process of looking at candidates and scheduling interviews for positions that are replacements for those who have left the district. For the teaching positions especially, it's critical that we are able to work through the interview vetting and reference checking and hiring process quickly because we don't want to lose quality candidates to other districts that have similar open positions. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in the agenda. Finally, July seems to be kind of a slow time for the district, but in reality, it's pretty busy in every building across the district. We're continuing to plan for the start of the school in August 28th. As you heard Wendy speak earlier, Liberty Curtin had an incredible busy first week. The first day back for staff is the 22nd of August, with new teachers starting a day earlier. Every Wednesday throughout the summer, we're hosting principals in the summer academy to help support the work that is happening in all of the buildings. And there's a lot of that. As you heard from our data report earlier, we're doing the right things in the right way, but we have more work to do. So we're going to be doubling down. We're going to be looking at the culture of our buildings. We're going to be looking at the experiences for our kids and our academics and continue to make improvements. At the same time, Liberty Curtin project continues. Floors are being stripped and waxed, carpets are being cleaned, records are being filed, reports are written, grants are written, major facilities projects being started, and the list goes on and on and on. All these things that we do during the summer. So while it seems kind of quiet because students aren't around, this is the busy time for central office. And especially for facilities. That's all I have to say. I do want to do a big shout out for the Central Mountain High School girls softball team for making it further than any other team has in history. And so thanks everything from Mr. Peters and the coaches and the teams to have they had a really, really great season.
Big thank you to the parents also.
Absolutely. That's all I have.
Okay, moving up, E, different reports. We have the treasury reports. Any questions on the treasury report? Financial report. Student enrollment report. Moving next to committees. We have the curricular, co-curricular committee report. Someone like to present on that?
Okay, I will, since I was the only committee member there. Basically, what was presented is what Megan had alluded to earlier about the new curricular program. This has been vetted by the teachers. I actually came to the very first meeting. I believe it was the first one. And whenever I came in here, this room was filled with teachers. So all those teachers were involved in going through, looking at the different parts of it, and they came down with the fact that the one that we're going to be voting on, that's what they all unanimously chose. Yeah, so I mean, this is something that I think is going to benefit the district, and I'm hoping that whenever it comes up, we don't have any real problems with this, getting it passed. One of the things that is good about this is is it ESSER funding? This will be funded through the ESSER funds. Okay, it'll be a one-time shot for how many years? 6 years. Typically it's 5, but because we're doing this a little early, we're going to get it for 6 years. And this will also include any of the expendables or consumables. I knew it was sometheables. So, yeah, the consumables are actually included with this too. This is going to be, like I said, no cost to the general fund, because this is going to be coming straight out of the ESSER funding that we've received. So talked about that. We also received a report from Mr. Lynch about the CTC program and the adult ed. Talked about finishing the apprenticeship classes for 23 and 24. The training in CNC apprenticeship. Also, he joined with the Commonwealth University for an adult education in machining, and offered a machining 1 class for first quality. Is that correct? So, all right. I mean, it was a really interesting meeting. So then we also did talk about with the activities. It was brought up about the junior high track team and stuff like that. And Dave gave us the answers to that. So that was it.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Jeff?
The Finance Committee met on May 28th, and we had only a few items on the agenda. Main topic, we had 2 presentations from our 2 insurance broker to just make a presentation to see, have us make a recommendation. First, we had our current broker, Gerhard Herb, presented their what their broker services can provide for us. They've been our broker, given our services for many years. And we also had the Hartman Group. They both gave rather detailed presentations. They both presented things that were very similar in cost. And I think after a rather lengthy discussion, I think we ended up just kind of leaning towards the Gerhard Herb because of the fact that they are local and they have done a nice job for us over the years. The next item we had was an update on the LERTA program, which is basically from Nick Grimes talked to us about it, what it is, which it's just basically it was passed by the state legislature in 1977, and it allows for taxing districts to exempt real estate taxes on new construction or improvement of deteriorated area. We currently have 2 properties that are being covered under LERTA, and basically it goes into over a 10-year period, and the tax liabilities decrease over time. The other item, of course, which you'll be seeing here in a little bit from Joni, she gave us the final budget update as it was at that point. I think it has changed slightly since our May 28th presentation. And the last item is the CD rates continue to look good. The 3-month rate is 5.15%. 6-month is 5%. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer that we wouldn't go ahead and take advantage of that interest rate. So I think we're going to do another 3-month. Recommend that anyway, that we invest I think in the 3-month, and then probably put that money into the capital projects account. That's it.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So I'm sorry I couldn't make that meeting. I was out of town. But when there was 2 presentations, Gerhard and a different, what was the name of the other company?
The Hartman Group.
Hartman Group. Is there any difference in costs?
Very minimal. There was, if I recall, was just $100 or something.
Yeah, it was.
It was very, very small.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Facilities Committee.
Facilities Committee was supposed to meet. We've had a couple glitches. We were supposed to meet originally the same day as the Finance Committee met, but we had technical problems, technology problems with not being able to get into Zoom, so we rescheduled it for June 5th. However, because somehow it did not get properly advertised in the right amount of time, we were not able to have a formal meeting. But there were several items on the agenda. You will see them on the agenda tonight, items 39 through 44, that deal with, mostly, they're all building related items where the Bucktail high water repair, the AHU ALC controls, the stormwater repair from at Bucktail. These are all costs are all there. At the time when we were going to meet, some of those items were not, the quotes had not been received at that point. Mill Hall fire alarm, the middle school bleacher, and press box removal. We need to purchase a new water heater for this building. And then the quality control contract or agreement with QA Plus, which is for the Liberty Curtain, and it's that amount has also already been budgeted in the contract for the quality control. So if you have any questions when we get to those items, I'm sure that Dr. Redmond or one of us will try to answer it. That's it.
Jeff, the only thing, I think most of those contracts that were on there, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, are budgeted in the 23-24 year capital. funds.
Correct. That's a good point.
So they're budgeted 23-24 years. So it's stuff we had the money for set aside, planning on doing, and this is why we have it on the agenda tonight to get it voted on tonight.
Right, that's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is absolutely correct. Those dollars are already budgeted for in the current year, the fiscal year that will be ending here at the end of the month.
Any questions? All right, under G1. Authorize the superintendent to fill vacancies. Dr. Redmond, you want to explain that, please?
Sure. This is an annual authorization that the board allows me to fill vacancies that happen over the summer. And it largely has to do with a timeline concern. There's a period of time that when teachers move positions in the middle of the summer, they have to give lead notice to the schools that they're leaving. And that time gap mixed with how often we meet over the summer could mean that we would lose potentially a teacher that we want to hire to another district. So what this authorizes me to do is, in those circumstances, move forward with a hire upon the recommendation of the hiring committee that's involved in working through that process. So we would follow all of the same things that we would normally do. And instead of just me bringing a recommendation to the board in the next board meeting, I move forward with the hire so we don't lose that candidate.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have some. Obviously, because you want an answer to do it before the next board meeting, you obviously know who you're gonna hire already?
No, there's still, we're still in process. And as I mentioned earlier, we're still in process for getting through the whole process that we do, interviews and vetting and reference checking and so forth.
How many people are you talking about?
I'm sorry, I don't have that number off the top of my head. I know that there's a couple of teachers, three teachers in the high school. This is off the top of my head. The custodians, which, the timeliness isn't as much of an issue there. A teacher up at Bucktail. So there's kind of a scattering. It's not like a dozen teachers or anything like that. I mean, these aren't new positions. This is just replacements for folks that have left us when we didn't anticipate that change.
When I saw that, I was like, we've been talking about reducing staff.
Yep.
And I don't think support staff or teachers need to be reduced. Some of the cutbacks need to come administrative wise. And when I saw that, I'm like, well, if we just say, yeah, go ahead and hire who you want, that's like letting a wolf in the sheep pen.
If you assume that I'm gonna hire people willy-nilly, but that's not the case.
Okay, I just wanted to make it clear because that's telling people that, yeah, we're just gonna hire whoever. And when I saw it was before the next board meeting, that's what caught me.
I guess if it has to be, if it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
that's why it's always
It'd
been
be
worded
nice if
this-
we knew how many we're looking at.
it's always been worded this way. where-
Normally what happens is say a teacher from our district is applying, let's say Williamsport, and they get on their board for a meeting in first of July. They get a position there. Then they tend their resignation to us. Well, now we have to replace that person if it's something we truly need.
Okay.
So it's something like that. It's not just, that we're looking at all these people. I think when there was a science teacher, I think we're on here tonight. So technically the person has not left yet, so we can't start the process of finding one until we approve his resignation tonight. So once he resigns, then they can start the process of finding one. If we wait till July to hire that person at the board meeting, and then they get 60 days to transfer to the other school, then we might not have that person in place at the beginning of the school year.
Okay, well, you answered my question. That's what I need.
Any other questions? D2, David Lindsay, to hire Lindsay Hall as the solicitor, to the same rate as it was last year. I think it was $175 an hour.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's the same rate it's been. We have that on there. Any questions? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
This is, I'm just gonna be blatantly open about this. I don't think the school district has put out for proposals for a solicitor for how long? I just think it's time that we figure out what is our solicitor actually doing, because he's not invited to any more meetings. We don't ask him any questions. You know, do we want a solicitor that specializes in union contracts? Like I said, I personally don't want to just rubber stamp this we've never had a discussion. Now we don't have time to have a discussion because his contract is going to be up. So I'm not sure how to work this, but I definitely believe the school board should sit down with administration, evaluate what we want in a school board solicitor and how are we going to have access if we have any questions. So I don't think just rolling it over and rolling it over and rolling over without a full evaluation. I don't know how often he's been used this year. I don't know how much we've spent.
Well, I know we've spent a lot over the past year.
Because there was a lot of conflicts that needed to be settled.
Okay.
So I'm not ready to vote on this. I'd like to
Alright.
table this.
Oh, okay, we have one vote. So when we get to the voting section, we can discuss it then. This is just a discussion, not to vote.
No, I understand that, but I'm just
Okay.
saying that's,
Okay, moving right, if you're done,
yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
moving down to G3, the settlement. It's recommended that we reject this settlement. That's something we discussed at the executive session. Any questions on that we can talk about in the open meeting? Well, next 4 out-of-state field trip. That's for the Skills USA competition that Kurt talked about. 4 students going to Atlanta for the Skills USA competition. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yes, this is just probably an oversight. And first of all, I just want to make it very clear, very supportive of this. But it's just an oversight. We've asked this in the past. Doesn't say if there's a cost or not on this particular sheet. So that's something we've always asked. It's just an oversight. We don't know if it's a cost to the district, a cost to the booster club, a cost to the parents.
With your permission.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Address that.
Thank you.
To answer your question, yet there's cost for hotel, cost for travel. They even have to register
Cost for
to
registration?
get in there. We have done a ton of letters to business industry. We've been very supportive in the tune of probably about $8,000. So that offsets a lot of your costs, but there is cost also to the club. And I also had some money building a grant.
Okay, that's lovely. So when do you have an idea of the,
Total cost?
yeah, just rough?
It's between 6 and 10 easily.
Okay, okay. Well,
Cost to the district would be,
rough.
Cost of district was probably about, I'm gonna say 4, maybe 3 to 4, and the rest we offset.
Okay, all right. And any of those businesses that did support this, however you decide, I would love to see those names. You know,
I can get you the list from the
well,
club
for the public-
advisors.
For the public, you know, someday if administration, you know, I think that would be
is it
lovely.
listed under donations?
Yeah, because we did that for states and for, if we had a very good feeling that we had some kids going to nationals.
So once, if the board chooses to approve this, in the subsequent meeting, we can list the donations.
And the cost of rough estimate, that would be lovely.
Okay.
Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Any other questions on the Skills USA trip? Next up, we have MOUs with the local law enforcement. This is just an annual agreement we have with all the township and municipal authorities or police officers or police departments in the area.
Yes.
And go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yes, this was brought to our attention, that if a child hits another child in the face, a law officer has their personal discrimination decide what it's called. Is it a civil thing? Is it an assault? So here's my question. After reading this, I understand the district can't demand that if a student hits another student, it's automatically an assault. But how can we work on this so there's consistency or that the communication is equal to all of these folks, that the school board wants them to work together, so when another student hits another student, it is automatically an assault. There is no, oh, it's just a this or this, that. So are we working as a safety committee working on this? Who is working on consistency so when an incident happens that the officer has guidance on what we request? Has a solicitor reviewed these? What are the solicitor's comments? I would really like to table this also, so we can dive deeper into this. And
These
find out.
MOUs are not for that. These
I
MOUs
understand
are
that.
in agreement with the local police authorities. As far as who dictates what crime is committed, the local law enforcement officer that investigates that crime or that incident will discuss it with the district attorney. The consistency is based on what the district attorney decides. The crime is usually based on a conversation between the law enforcement officer and the district attorney.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What do we have that we have confidence in that the Pennsylvania State officers, the Mill Hall police officers, that we know, how do we know that they have consistency?
I think that's something that safety and security, our committee needs to work on.
Okay.
And we can do that. I think that can be brought up because the MOU is just that we're agreeing to keep the agreement going that we're
Sure.
working with everybody else.
That's what I'm saying. Should the MOU include anything additional?
No, it can't. It can't.
Okay.
Because that's gonna come down to safety and security committee. The MOU is agreement to work with them.
Okay, well,
That's
that sounds great. All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? No. The school improvement plan. Any questions on the school improvement plan?
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, on the Woodward Steering Committee page. Okay, if we're gonna improve the school, we need to get our places right. It has Tracy Smith listed as a school board president
I mean, was this just copied and pasted from
on the
somewhere?
Woodward side. Okay, we need to fix that.
Yeah, was this completely updated?
If you go to the Mill Hall one, it shows Elizabeth Lynch as the school board president.
I think I just saw a bunch of people turning the grave.
And if you go to Renovo, which it shows you as just a school board member, I think we need to update where we are and who's who. That's all.
Yeah, I just think the school board president needs taken out, and put board.
Yeah, and if you look at some
I
of the
can
dates.
agree with that.
Dates of the conferences, I see 2003. So, but, let's table this one. Let's discuss tabling this one also, and they can bring it back next month with all the correct edits.
I think they just need to
Yeah,
update
repair
who's
it.
who and what it is. And like Butch said, remove the president off of it completely.
Just put board member.
Yes,
Okay.
that's it.
Good catch.
Any other questions on those? Can you take care of that, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right, next up, we have minutes. A work session minutes from May 2nd. Any questions on that? Voting meeting minute from May 9th. Any questions on that? Policy committee meeting. Any questions on those minutes? Curricular co-curricular committee minutes. Finance committee minutes. Questions? Special voting meeting minutes. Any questions on that? Moving into bills. Business, bills for payment. Any questions on bills for payment?
I got questions.
Go ahead, Chris.
The Coke fund that we have, what is that? What's it established for?
I don't know if I can speak completely to that. Is there one of our administrators,
Oh, yeah.
Joni?
Lucky Joni.
Okay, the Coke Fund it actually was Pepsi a long time ago, and we have vending machines in a couple of the buildings. And Pepsi would then donate a portion of what they profited off of the vending machines and would donate it back to the schools. So then we put it in a fund for each school that they can use for, a lot of it was used for positive behavior type activities or field trips, because it was really donated money that the only provision was that it would reward the whole school. Like certain groups didn't really use it. It was something to be used for the entire school. So we just call it the Coke Fund.
Okay, so it's primarily something used for the students.
Absolutely.
Okay. On the first bill for payment, there's a bill that we have to vote to pay on out of the Coke Fund for $780 for a teacher appreciation at the Bridge Tavern. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. We should not be paying for a bunch of people to go to a tavern. This money should be for the kids.
So we also reward, and we do reward the kids, but we also do reward the teachers. They work hard to students, and we do allow the Coke funds to be used to reward the teachers.
Is there a policy on the Coke Fund or an AR? Because I can see that some people might, is there, when was this established?
Bless you.
Or,
The Coke Fund's been there as long as I can remember. It used to be because the Coke machines was pretty much in the teacher's lounge and places like that, because the kids normally didn't have access because of, at one time, wasn't on the approved list of drinks and stuff. So it was mostly in the teachers' lounges and things like that. Now they kind of moved to other places. So the money just, as they're buying a Coke, a certain percentage comes back into that building to be used for the discretion of the building principal.
so the billing principal has the control over the Coke Fund?
They typically go through the business office and ask for approval. Also in that fund though is Weiss donations, Interstate Studio, the photographer. So it's more than just the Coke funds, the Coke funds that go into that fund, but it's put in there to support the school. The school includes the teachers, the staff, and the students. That's how we look at it. And
Okay,
that's
I
how
just-
they're appropriated.
Maybe we need to look at that under a policy, because I'd like to see that money used for the school kids, for part of the stuff that they use for different entities, and not to support a party at a Bridge Tavern. I appreciate our teachers more than anybody. That's why they get a paycheck. That's why they get 8 years of benefits when they're done. So I would just like to see that keeping things, trying to reorganize them a little bit and make a policy for that, so that money goes to the kids and or to the school for projects.
So they didn't go to the Bridge Tavern.
That's what it says here.
Understood. That's where the tacos that they ate were purchased from and brought to the school.
$780 worth?
Yeah, it was two different schools.
Okay.
Yeah, still, yeah, we'll talk about this during the policy committee,
Yeah.
okay? That would be great. Put that on the agenda for the policy committee.
Any other questions on the bills for payment?
I got a lot.
Go ahead. We've got all night.
On page 3, we have a bill for Valley Ace Hardware for an M18 Fuel 2K drill impact for $1,516. I looked on their website and was even down there. And the most expensive one that they had was only $369. So was there a lot of other stuff bought with that, or what's up with it?
Yeah, in the contract you approved with the union, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, there's a stipulation in there that now we have to provide all hand tools all tools to our staff. So we've elected to replace some of the old stuff we have, and then also we have to upfit some of the other staff with that stuff. So yeah, that was multiple different things. That was kits, drill kits, hammer drills, screw impacts, sawzalls.
Okay, it
mul-
doesn't
mul-
say that.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
not
I'm
broke
asking.
down that way, but most of that was kits that they bought, and some impact drivers for like lug nuts, those sorts of things.
Okay. Next thing I'm gonna ask about is on page 4. On 5/3 of 24, there was a spill response at Liberty Curtain. And the bill on that is $6,380.04. None of us know about that.
Yes, we talked about that. That was for the cleanup for the oil that was spilled. That was the
I thought that
environment.
was like in that $2,400 thing we did.
No, that was for the contractor to go ahead and use their equipment that was there to clean it up rather than having Eagle come in and pick it up. But that was for the oil that was
All right, well,
dumped in the
this was
ground.
never discussed with us, and this bill was never discussed with it. That's something that should be. Is that coming out of the general fund, or is
That-
that coming out of the Liberty Curtain Fund?
That's coming out of general fund.
Why?
Because if we brought it out of the project, it'd be subject to prevailing wage and a whole bunch of other
Well, this
things.
is where we go back to change orders. We can throw things in out of the general budget and just take money out of it for things, and we will be way over budget because we're not counting them in.
Yeah,
$6,300 is a lot of money.
I'm assuming the business manager or the finance committee, or there's a spreadsheet. I don't care where the money's coming from for Liberty Curtain. I mean, everything, right? Or if there isn't, wouldn't the board like that for evaluation purposes? So,
So we know where we are standing in the budget.
yes, I mean, everything on one spreadsheet, and then what departments, what category it's coming from. I would like to see that. Is there any board member that wouldn't like to see that?
No.
I think we've been seeing that, I think we just saw it not that long ago, where we had, or where we're at with the project. I think this funding here, was that for disposal of the contaminated waste?
That was for the disposal and also for the testing. And it was for
Environmental testing.
yeah, it was environmental testing. Eagle Tire is the Center County's environmental cleanup company. They came up, it was for the dumpster and the storage of it until the testing came back. That's not something that's part of the project, though. That's something that we did as a district we did it years ago. We just discovered it during the project. So it could go either way. If you wanted it built into the project, you could build into the project, but we elected to take it out of general fund because we felt there was a cost savings by doing it that way.
Well, either, no, we appreciate when you look at cost savings, we do, or I do. But what I'm saying is, seeing a monthly spreadsheet for any expense that goes to the Liberty Curtain project, that it's already happened, or that we're, so it's updated every month. So we see, and then what fund it came out of. So the board and the public sees everything that is costing. So there's it's transparent and no one's saying, oh, you're spending too much money. Well, or you're not spending it, or you're, just have it transparent, all in one spreadsheet.
I don't know
would-
how it's cost savings. You spend $6,000 out of your left front pocket or your right front pocket, you still spend $6,000.
But I'm not,
Prevailing
that's,
wage, I believe. is
I
what it was.
hear you.
Yeah, if we
Tom, but-
handled it
I
a
don't
different
see
way.
how it's cost savings.
But no, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it is a cost savings or not, but I appreciate when cost savings occur.
Oh,
what I'm saying is I-
exactly, but this wasn't a cost savings.
Okay,
I can't see, you still spend $6,380.
okay, I hear that, but I'm just flipping it onto a different page right now. It's where the board would have a monthly spreadsheet
Oh, yeah.
where any item that was spent or has been spent on the Liberty Curtain project is all on that spreadsheet and what fund it came from, and it's just a rolling tally, very simple. And I would like to see that starting next month. Is there any board member that would not like to see that happen?
No, I would like to see that because before this bill occurred, we were,
We
$2,000?
authorized 2 change orders to $2,500.
yeah, now we're up
This
to,
was stuff way down in the bills for payment. And
now
that's
we're up
why
to
I've argued,
$9,000.
that's why I've argued the bills for payment stuff needs to be redone and needs to be in categories by the school or whatever. Because we have stuff hidden in our bills and it needs taken care of. How many of you knew that that bill was in there to pay?
I didn't. And I never assumed a Liberty Curtain bill would be buried, not buried, that sounds rude. I don't mean to be rude, because I know they've been trying to find new software for approximately a year or so. Okay, so I know they're working on it, because we want to see categories and we want to see expenses, so it's not just this list of,
You have to spend
Noise.
hours to go down through every
Right.
single
Alright.
thing if you want to
Any
know
other
about it.
any other questions? Jody, can we take care of that? Just start running the spreadsheet for us, please. Any other questions on the bills for payment?
Rob, do you wanna
say something?
Go ahead.
You done?
Yeah, we're good.
Then we go to page 6. Now, this is just small bills, okay? Nothing major, but I'm curious why we're buying dog paw glitter tattoo for curriculum general supply. Because that, to me, is not anything to do with learning.
a critical component.
Buying stuff for a kid to make a dog paw glitter tattoo is not learning. So I'm just asking that we can look at this stuff, because this small stuff, maybe only $20, $30 here and there, but you do it 100 times, there's a lot of money.
Anything else, Chris?
Oh, yeah. On page 13. Why are we paying for a retirement dinner for $450 at Sons of Italy? Because we're giving, I love the teachers and the staff, but we're giving them 8 years
Well, those, they actually
of
get,
benefits. We should not be paying for a retirement dinner. They should build their own account and pay that bill out of their self.
well, is there any, what fund did that come out of?
General account.
Well, is that where it came out of?
It's taxpayer dollars we're paying for it. That's why I'm wondering.
I'm hoping it was a union account or something, right? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what?
General fund.
That's
Mm.
410, right, Joni? Yeah. that's what
I don't. I
Was
don't
that
really
the-
agree with that type of, expenditure for,
Great.
I agree that they should be recognized, but this is news to me. Is this something that happens? Well, never mind, but
Every
let's,
year we have a retirement celebration for our retirees. I think you went last year and bought wine. Remember?
I brought, yes, I did, but I
So you
never
go to
asked.
'em, but
I went to
so-
one, you're absolutely correct, Butch, but I never asked how it was funded. I sort of assumed it was a pool thing or a union dues thing. I never expected it to be out of the general fund.
Well, then
As of
maybe
right-
we should just vote to eliminate the retirement dinner then. And so we just, just say, we pay lip service. We always preface everything, I love the teachers, but maybe we just thought to eliminate the retirement dinner and retire and any of the other things that would benefit any of the teachers. I know we say we love the teachers and everything, but we don't, when it comes to this nickel and dime stuff, no, we
Nickel
can't
and
do that.
dime stuff adds up into.
Yeah, I
big
know it
dollars.
does, Chris. I
So
know it does, but
don't-
I'm not gonna
don't
sit here and
classify
go
it as
through.
nickel and
Gentlemen,
dime.
let's get back to the topic. Chris has the
Um,
floor.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
We'll make it fast.
Chris has the
Well, I'll
floor.
get done when I
Chris,
get done.
you
If
have
you
the
don't like
floor.
it, you can hit the door.
Excuse me. A little
Next
decorum,
thing is-
please.
Ridiculous.
On page 14, yes, you are being
Doc,
ridiculous.
please,
You-
gentlemen.
On page 14, we have books that were bought. Who is LeBron James and who is Taylor Swift? I don't know why we're worried about that. That is not educational to a kid. I even looked it up and I don't think the kids need to learn the stuff that Taylor Swift has done and is doing.
Did that go
That's
to
just my
curriculum
thought.
committee?
I don't need to know about LeBron James either.
Exactly. Then I have a question, Mid-America Administrative and Retirement, a severance pay of $6,440. Is that a retirement deal or? Okay. On page 15, a $275 charge for EXP of ADM, EXP of board service for an executive session of $275. What is that? Is that for that court reporter? Because if it is, I think that's a charge that should go back to the parent.
Oh my God.
Parents need to be a little responsible. It's on page 15.
Who's the vendor?
Huh?
Who is the vendor?
Clinton County.
It's on the left.
It says Clinton County, and then has our account numbers and all. EXP of ADM, EXP of board service, executive session on an expulsion hearing for $275.
In the express.
Okay, does that charge get charged back or we just,
No, that's an expense that we have to publicize all our meetings,
right?
and that's the expense of advertising it in the express.
Okay. And then we had an expense on page 27 of an ice cream reward for $1,177.25 to Brewster's Real Ice Cream. What was that?
Brewster's went to,
That's student activity fund, that's fund 81.
Okay,
That's student activities.
all right.
And that comes from the booster clubs.
activities.
Do what?
That whole page is that student fund.
Right.
481.
I was just curious because that surprised me also. That's all I got.
That's, yeah.
Any other
Bet you're
questions?
happy.
Any other questions on the bills for payment?
I just want to make a clarification.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Yes, I did attend one of the retirement parties. I dropped off some wine as a thank you, but I did not stay for the meal. I just popped in, gave a thank you and I left. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Moving right along. Next up, depositories. It's different banks we deal with. Any questions, on any of that? No questions, moving on to the final general fund budget.
I do have something on depository.
Go ahead,
Sorry about
Chris.
that. On the checks and stuff, it's listed there that there has to be two people sign it. And that's a good policy to have. But if you go to the next page under investments, it's only one signature required. I think anything to do with transferring any amount of money needs to have two signatures. I don't think there should be anything that one signature is required to move money around.
So to actually transfer money in and out of accounts, it does go through two approval chains. It goes through the person who initiates it, and then there has to be an approver. So
Okay,
there are two people.
This only says one signature. That's why I'm asking.
Understood.
Any other questions under that? Under the general fund budget, any questions on the general fund budget? No questions on the budget. Resolution 150 Homestead Farmstead hat. It's just approving the resolution saying we received the Farmstead Homestead Act. Money's broken down to individuals.
And we receive, on that, we receive district gaming money
Yeah, I'm gonna.
to let taxes go down, but then we're raising them on top of it.
So it's part of the property relief tax that we receive every year, which allows us to have a farmstead homestead exclusion, which we share among all the counties.
Okay.
It
I'm
doesn't really,
learning.
it doesn't come to us. The money goes actually to the taxpayer.
Correct. We pass it right on. It does come to us, but we pass it right on to the taxpayers.
Any questions on farmstead homestead?
Thrown off by district gaming money.
Can't hear you, Tom.
I'm just thrown off by the term gaming money.
That's where it comes from.
It's gambling. It's all the gambling in Pennsylvania. We receive a portion of that. So that's what it is actually called.
Okay.
Next we
That's why I was
have,
questioning it because of that term.
yeah, it's just something that they did a few years ago when they legalized gaming, gambling. They put it back into the school system. It
Okay.
helps relieve property taxes.
Okay.
So it goes right through us back to the property owner. Resolution 151 budget transfers. This allows Joni to move money at the end of the year. Any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Is this a way to just move money around to fix the audit so the audit looks good? Because it says in here, further direct the business manager to report revisions to the board during the meeting immediately following the completion of the audit.
Correct. So there are times when you'll have to do budget transfers. So
Right.
you're just transferring it from one line item to another line item. You could, there could be short in a line item somewhere, and then you can move money from another budget line item. You're not adding, you're not subtracting, you're just moving it from this budget line item to this one.
Is that just to make the audit come out right or?
It is, they prefer you to be on, I guess, on task for your budget line items.
Okay.
So they allow you and prefer you to move your budget items to match your expenses to match your budget amounts.
Okay, thank you.
No questions on that? Next is pretty much the same thing with the committed funds. Any questions on that? Next up, we have a whole bunch of bids. These are bids that we look at annually. We send them out to different vendors via email or advertisement in different papers for different supplies. Do you want me to go through them all individually, or do you want to just go lump them all the bids together?
I think there's some of them that need to be discussed.
Okay, food
Sorry.
service, food service bid. Any questions on food service?
Since it seems like I'm the only one asking questions,
Number
you want me
eight.
to just pull the numbers on it?
We'll just go through them individually.
All right.
Number 8, nurse supply bids. Number 9, supplies for the arts. Number 10, the supplies for the bid for music supplies. 11, bid for custodial supplies. 12, AV supplies. 13, office classroom supply bids. Any questions on that? Bids in our printing. 15, municipal waste service contract. Any questions on that?
I did have a comment.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I just, not for discussion this evening, but I feel that we're finally to the point where we can start seriously reducing the amount of waste that is going into these dumpsters and make a committed goal that maybe, next year or something, so we can start seeing reductions in these costs. And I'm just saying, here's an example, and it's not due to anyone's failure. It's just, it became normal that the dumpster is right outside the doors and the recycle bins are farther away. So there's no incentive at all for our schools to reduce the amount of waste going into the dumpsters. In fact, we've made it physically harder for them. So I would just like to say that at some point in the future, I would like the school board to evaluate with maybe the facilities committee meeting or in the appropriate place, how we can grow awareness for being responsible for our own waste, and also possibly bring it into curriculum. I don't know at this point, but I just know it's easier to throw stuff in the dumpster than it is to walk and throw it into the recycling bins. So.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
President, I'd like to make a statement.
Go ahead.
I think it's kind of ironic that Ms. Lynch makes a statement about wanting to reduce the cost and reduce the waste and stuff like that. However, two meetings ago, she voted down to have wastewater removed from these waste receptacles to because of a change order. That change order would have saved the district an enormous amount of money.
Enormous.
And but now it's being brought up about this. I just think it's kind of ironic.
Well,
That's all I
hear
have
you.
to say.
I hear you, Roger.
Moving on.
I hear you, Roger, but as I have stated to an individual at the school, why I voted that way, I believe our students, and this is what I told the individual, I believe our students and I believe our staff have the intelligence to know the difference between a liquid and a solid, and they can pour the liquid in the correct place and they can put the solid in a correct place. Our staff and students are smart enough to keep the liquids out of the waste cans.
Moving right along. Next, we have a joint purchasing for paper bid. Any questions on that? Next, we have an infant development transportation agreement. Any questions on that? Enterprise fleet agreement. This is for vehicles we use, I believe, for property services. Any questions on that? Next up, 19, the McClure HVAC maintenance agreement. If you look underneath that, there's actually two different contracts or two different proposals. One from McClure and one from a BSC Mechanical. So we need to decide which one of them we prefer.
Is this
I
new?
I believe McClure was a little cheaper in this one.
McClure was $111 cheaper, but with that said, BSC is a local county taxpayer that pays into our school district. I think for $111, that contract could go to them simply for the fact that they are one of our taxpayers.
I
That's
would
just
agree
the
with
thought when it comes up.
I mean, unless there's some business bureau or some sort of, anything that we need to know about BSC that we would not feel comfortable you know, our staff wouldn't feel comfortable working with BSC. Is there anything, any reason that we should know why we should not go with BSC?
Well, there's one thing about BSC that stands out.
Okay,
They might be $111 a little more expensive, but like I said, they're a county taxpayer. Rob, I applaud you for getting 2 bids. That makes me happy. But BSC is guaranteeing a 2-hour response on school days.
oh, because of the,
That
I didn't
speaks
notice that.
huge volumes, so
Didn't notice that.
that in my mind, there is no question no more.
Yeah.
When we come to the voting session, we
Yeah.
just need someone to pick one or the other. And
Okay,
I agree with you. I think for someone that's local, probably be worth $111.
well, so with the 2-hour emergency response, absolutely.
2 hours response.
Well, it
One
isn't
is-
in the, it's not in the proposal from the other one.
Okay, moving to 20,
Good catch.
number 20. It's
Yeah.
pretty much the same thing. There's a maintenance agreement with McClure and a proposal from BSC Mechanical on this one, I
Yes.
believe. BSC is actually cheaper on this one.
$2,348 difference. I think that's a no-brainer, because once again, it's another local company.
Okay. Remember that when we come, we're gonna need,
You're already frustrated.
we're gonna select, we're gonna have to select one of those. So someone's gonna have to make a motion to pick one of those. 21, PSBA dues invoice, 24 and 25. Any questions on that?
I actually have. it.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. From what I understand, the all access package gives us full access to the grants that are available. But one thing I will say, I don't really know, we've had other priorities, so we don't even have a committee yet that's actually looking at grants and fundraising and all that kind of stuff and naming rights. We don't have it yet, but I'm hoping we can work on it next year. Start the discussion so we can find out if that's where the board wants to go. But one thing I will say about, we're paying $17,500 for PSBA. Okay, they've been instrumental in helping us because they go through a lot of the legal things for the policies. Okay, they've been instrumental, but I will say this. I don't believe we take advantage of the live and online training. Their online training is fantastic. And I'm not sure how many of you haven't seen how many trainings they have. Yes, you have to do a handful of, required ones by the state, but I just can't stress it enough. If the taxpayers are paying for this, we should, as a board member, be doing as many online trainings as we possibly can because they cover every topic, from how to do financing, reviewing a superintendent, how to talk to community members. So if we're buying this package, let's use it, okay? Thank you.
Any other questions on that? The MOS YLE Manager 1K12 License Agreement. Any questions on that? King's Elevator Service Agreement. Any questions on the elevator service?
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'd like to put 23 and 24 together so that people can look at it. It's once again, Rob did 2 bids, good job. But Kings 3 is in Texas. Eastern is at least a PA company. If you look at Kings 3 to do Central Mountain, they want $116 a month. Eastern works out to $65.98 a month.
One for the Kings is
Ma-
just for elevator phones. The Kings is just for elevator phones. That's a requirement from Department of Labor and Industry that we have elevator phones at both the buildings that have cars in them.
But that one was talking about grease and everything.
No, the Kings 3 elevator service agreement should be just that's just phones.
Okay, because they were talking about servicing and everything.
We can look back through those, but that's the yearly one that we put in when we got cited by the state for not having phones in there.
So we should table this one?
No,
Well, if it's not
it
correct.
says it's for elevator with skyline / turnkey existing hands-free as two so there would be two different phones, I would assume, two different.
Correct.
places. So it talks about that in here. It talks about running the required wires, conduit. And so
This is a standard one that we use every year with Kings for the telephone service. We got cited, I think, 2 years ago because they didn't work. And they put it in. I don't see where, I think they may have a blanket form that they use if it says something about greasing or whatever in there. I don't see it.
Okay,
but-
when I read it, it kind of looked like it was a maintenance contract.
No,
That's why I'm
that,
wondering.
all that one is just the phones and
Okay.
Kings is the only one that we can find to do it. We've tried to do it internally and we've struggled with it. And that's when we ended up with the citation
Okay.
from Labor Industry.
Well, you answered my question then. And it's the same then, I guess, with the eastern elevator, that is for maintenance? Okay.
it's for the same two elevators, actually, same elevators.
That brings up a question. How often do if we keep renewing contracts and we just sort of refill in the spaces? And I'm not saying, I'm just asking for a consideration to, that maybe on a business, with the business department or the administration, the superintendent, that these contracts go through a cycle, like maybe every 5 years, a solicitor reviews them. So any of these little things that might be outdated or, because when we fill in the blanks all the time, and if it isn't on a structured schedule for review legally, I'm just bringing it up. Thank you.
Next, 25, frontline annual contract. Any question on the frontline contract?
What is it?
Frontline is a program that does a whole bunch of stuff for us. So everything from how we bring in applications for new staff members, reporting absences for staff. It's just, it's kind of a central program for a lot of the administrative things that we do.
Computer program.
Yeah.
Is that what the next one is also?
The Forecast 5.
Yeah.
Forecast 5 is an piece of analysis software that really helps the business office in particular look at being able to forecast and do predictions and look at past expenditures and all that sort of thing. So it's just something to help us get more streamlined and efficient with our budget.
So is this part of that idea where you're doing the investigation to get new software so it can work with all the other departments and it's just, you're not gonna have to put in and take out and put it, oh, thank goodness. 21st century.
Next, Nittany Learning Service.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Chris.
Along with what Mr. Walker said in the beginning, I've been approached by several people, some even staff members, believe it or not. And I don't think that we can even entertain anything from that company, seeing how one of our directors' husband is part owner of it. And that just, and she's in charge of some of the pupil services. I'm sorry, he's right. That is a conflict of interest.
What does our solicitor say about this?
Let's go with what does our superintendent say first?
Sure.
In terms of a conflict of interest, I'm not certain about that because Ms. Manning isn't in charge of making any of the decisions about placement for Nittany Learning Services.
What is her job and title then? She's in charge of pupil services.
She oversees lots of other departments. So the counselor, nursing, some of our MTSS work, our PBIS. So she sees a lot of other things.
But it just,
attendance.
that doesn't look good because it looks like other fingers could reach out and steer to that. And I'm sorry, but I consider that a severe conflict of interest.
I would like to know what the solicitor has to say about it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, before I vote on this. I want this tabled. I'm gonna request it gets tabled.
When we get to the voting section, you can request anything you want when we get to the voting section.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just discussing it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also, do we ever put this out to bid? I mean, is this, these services, do we ever put this out to bid?
I believe we actually have a couple different.
I was gonna
there's
say,
like-
we have a couple
there's
different
alternative
bids there
placement
for.
Places, there's a couple
Mm-hmm.
on here. If you were to look farther down the agenda,
Yeah.
we have some on here.
Well, I mean, compare apples, I mean, it'd be nice if they would have all been on the same thing. I mean, I know it's
We
just. a-
have,
Right.
we have variable or various different options to use. Depending on the situation, if we have two students fighting, we can't send them both
To the same place.
We have separate places we can send them. That's why we try to keep different placement spots available. I think this one had 10 seats. With buying 10, you got 11th one free.
Yeah, it's $165,000. That's quite a bill.
And it's far less expensive to pre-purchase seats than it is to do a per diem.
I
I
basis.
understand
It's
that.
like a
I just,
50%
I'm
premium.
concerned with the conflict, that's all.
Yeah, I don't know enough. I don't know what committee or who discusses this. I don't know enough. I'll be honest with you. And I'm embarrassed to say, I really don't know enough about this to, I don't.
We've used it.
Yes, I realize that.
numerous years.
I realize that, but now that different information has come forward, I don't feel like a confident voter.
I will say, I remember the last time that this came up for bid was whenever Dr. Martin was here. And she actually made the statement that anytime it came to something like this, it was actually her that was in charge of
Placements
putting the person there.
or designee? Okay.
Yeah. Christina was not involved in that portion of it. She was actually removed from it because of exactly what you guys are saying.
Well,
So that, I mean, that was put in place before. but-
obviously, since it was discussed a long time ago, people
Dave.
are cautious about it.
Okay. I think Dave, you have some comments?
So just some clarifications. Currently, we use two programs. One of them shut down during the course of the school year. We use Nittany Learning Services, which is an AEDY approved program by the state. We also have Justice Works, which is also, Justice Works is in Williamsport. They closed. The only place in 3 counties that's AEDY approved is Nittany Learning Services. So as long, if we don't want to utilize an alternative education program, which we often have students that require that level of support to get them out of our building, to allow them to be remediated at other locations. Just so we're clear, there aren't 2 options for AEDY approved. There are other programs, but they're not AEDY approved by the state of Pennsylvania. So I think that's important for clarification purposes.
So what options do we have?
You have the option to find another program that would be located outside of Lycoming, Clinton, or Center County, which again, you're talking about your transportation costs, all those different things. Or you have the option to not, again, utilize an AEDY program.
And if we don't utilize an AD, then what's,
Then those students remain in our schools and all the things that we talk about. And those situations are back here. At one point, we also had support within the building, which has now been removed as well.
why has it been removed? I mean, I don't mean
Well,
to put you on.
we
I'm
did
not putting you on
contract
the
with
spot.
Nittany Learning Services previously
Yeah,
for a program, which we determined we did not wish to do any longer. That's certainly understandable.
sure.
But these are 2 separate programs. So that program was also in the building to support. In this situation, we have students, typically they're in a 45-day placement, but can be extended. There's a process that the state outlines that we must go through these steps. And so they have 1 facility in 3 counties. And so just so we're clear, that's the conversation that needs to be accurate.
Can that be done here with our own students here?
So it would not be a state approved AEDY program unless we went through the process to get our
Okay,
own
so-
program, which
Right.
is about a 3-year process. To be able to go through all those steps to be able to do that.
Do any
Alright.
school district, I mean, I know this is way too much, Dave. It's late. Oh my God, it's almost 10 o'clock. I would like at some point in the future, maybe this is a discussion we should have, whether or not we're gonna work with UPMC, Geisinger, do it in-house, lease property for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is where the partnerships come in, okay? Because the amount of money they're spent, we need services. We
It's
need
not
to
a
take.
Geisinger or UPMC issue though.
Yeah.
No, I know, but
They,
I
they don't offer
realize-
the same type of program.
I know, but maybe they don't know how desperate we are. Is what I'm saying. The partnership discussions is where these
Yeah.
things get flushed
I just
out.
want to make sure that we were clear so you understood the broader picture, that there are not other AED-Y programs in our area.
So are you
Thank you,
saying
Dave.
this is something we absolutely need?
From a person who was an administrator in both the middle school and the high school, I think if you talk to any of our administrators, the number of overall students that we put into the alternative ed program and they rotate throughout the year, I think it's vital to have some level of seats. The number of seats is at your determination, discretion. As referenced, I think, yes, if we don't book seats now, there's an extenuating cost down the road for them. But I do think at some level, we have students right now that we're already discussing returning them to start next school year. And so if that possibility doesn't exist, then again, they're back here and we need to talk through that process just so we have a firm understanding of what we can do to support them.
Do you have any idea how many students a year we send?
It honestly varies. And typically what I would say from a pattern, early in the school year, we're trying to put as many things in place as we possibly can to keep the students here. Sometimes in severe situations, students with a weapons violations, drug violations, all of our policies indicate it's a mandatory referral to an AED-Y program. That's what's in our policy right now. So if we don't do that, or we don't have that as an
Gotta change the
option,
policy.
we either need to change the policy or we're not following our own policy.
So,
these-
Bill, if I could, to your question, we talked about this at length about the number of students that we have placed in AED-Y, and the average across the year is 9 or 10. Sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower.
Across the whole year?
Across the whole year, right?
Okay.
And so we came up with this number of 10. We had it split up between the two programs. Someone didn't learn this, some in the other. But when the other one closed, we
Right,
know
I
that across
understand
the
that.
year, we have a need for about 10 across the district
Okay.
consistently. So that's how we came up with the number for.
Well, we need-
These other two companies don't provide that?
I'm not seeing what you're seeing, Chris.
Okay.
But what I can say to you is there are other programs that we utilize, DTAC, Williamsport, we have different, but they offer a different service. So to say an alternative education facility, the only one that's certified by the state right now is Nittany Learning Service within, like I said, Lycoming, Clinton, and Center County.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks, man.
I apologize for stepping out of turn.
No, I
there.
No,
was.
you're good.
Just
You know,
throwing you
I have,
accurate information.
Yes.
I feel like I'm at a press conference here.
Tell me
Follow up.
what this AED stands for.
Butch, can I please say something?
Just a second, Tracy.
Okay.
Please say what AED
Yeah.
stands for. then we'll go on,
Alternative
Tracy.
Education for Disruptive Youth.
Okay. All right, Tracy, go ahead.
Dr. Martin, for several years, has tried to bring an AED-Y program on site in the district, and it has not passed through the board because certain board members were not happy about it being on site. We had discussed putting it downstairs when we had room downstairs in the CTE, which may no longer be feasible because of how much it's grown. But this has been discussed before.
No, you're absolutely correct, Tracy. At that time,
Right.
but that's why I think
Bill has
Tracy.
a question.
we
Go
should-
ahead, Bill.
Okay.
I don't know which one of you might, what's typically the highest number you have at any given time? So we get 10 in a year.
So
but is
it's 10 consistently. So at any given time during the year, we'll have somewhere between 8 and 12. It averages out to about 10 consistently throughout the year.
Oh,
We've had
so
as
it's
many
not
as-
10 a year. It's
No.
it's 100 a year.
And this is why we're doing,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
no, it's not 100 a year. This is why we have the 10 seats.
Okay.
So that over the course, and as Mr. Peters referenced, typically it looks like a 45-day placement. So a student does something so egregious that we need to remove him from the student population. They go for remediation and education to help the student change behavior so they can be
Okay.
part of the school program again for about 9 weeks or so, and then we bring them back, and then that opens up the seat for another student.
The point is you typically have about 10 kids that need this at any given time.
Yes.
Yeah, and this
Okay,
this
that's
does
important.
encompass all the
That's-
schools,
I was
Buck
confused
Hill
on that.
High
Thank
School,
you.
Middle
Yeah.
School, Central Mountain Middle School, and Central Mountain High
Yeah.
School. So you're pulling from 4 different buildings
All right.
potentially for those 10 kids.
Thank you.
I want to look at even the whole cost of that transportation, like Mr. Walker said, you add that 300,000 onto the 165,000, we're almost at $500,000 for 10 kids. I think we should seriously look at getting our own program here.
Or partnering with UPMC if they're property. Who
Yes,
knows?
They don't have,
absolutely.
they don't have
Thank
anything
you.
like this.
Excuse me.
No, PMC, it's this is
I
an
guess something we
educational
need
thing.
to
It's
I'm
look
not-
saying
at.
they have a lot of property.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm the transportation supervisor in the district. It does not cost anywhere near $300,000 to transport a student from our district to and from Nittany Learning Services. It does not cost anywhere near that.
Well, that's what we were advised. That's why we're wondering.
No. Plus, we run everything on state formula when I transport those students to and from that facility. And when I do my state report at the end of the year, a portion of that is reimbursed back to the district. That's how we cover our costs for the upcoming school year. So it doesn't cost anywhere near that dollar
Okay,
amount.
I'm just,
Yeah.
because you heard Mr. Walker said it was 300,000.
Yes, I
wanna
did hear
clear it
that.
up.
That's an inaccurate dollar amount. That's
Okay.
not correct.
Any other questions on Nittany Circle?
I'll drop it.
Good. That was good
Okay,
conversation.
next up. The Merkey Behavior Health Agreement. Any questions on that? Cartwheel Agreement with the IU.
I'm gonna say, if you guys didn't look at that agreement, you need to. That is one of the most professional things I've ever seen, even with pictures of their staff.
The Cartwheel Agreement? You're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
the IU. Yeah.
I don't think we reach out to these groups and tell them like, don't just send us a piece of paper where it's just copy and
Yeah,
paste and fill in the
this-
blank.
Their,
Okay?
their proposal was one of the most professional I think I've seen.
That's what we should be getting from these other people.
Next up, we have the CIU 10 for access billing. Any questions on that? Next, Keep Safe Transportation Contract. Any questions on that?
This is new, right? Or am I not remembering this correctly? Is this a new group we're working with?
No, it is
This
not.
is, okay.
Is this a special or a different transportation group than what the normal buses are? Or?
Susquehanna.
Susquehanna Transit is our biggest contractor in the
Right.
district. Keep Safe is smaller and they help support, especially to these outside placement facilities, because we do have to transport to other counties. So that helps support the district with that outside placements for those students.
Thank you.
You're
Do
welcome.
do they have
Usually
cameras?
Van services used to run
That's what I was wondering.
individual or sometimes a couple of
Yeah.
students.
Right.
This contract include, I don't see it, but maybe I'm missing it because I'm not reading every single verb. These, we're mandating that they have cameras on all of these vehicles, correct? Like we do with Susquehanna?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
they are.
have GPS in these vehicles and cameras
But
in
it's
these.
it's in the contract though, right?
All of the contracts outline this video surveillance in there.
Okay, all right,
Yes.
just,
Yeah, I saw that in there.
okay, thank you. Just want to
Okay,
make sure,
next.
because I'm so tired. This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Well,
I can't,
we should not have crammed this.
No,
all
this
in
is
one
way
day.
Next
too
up,
much,
we have a
way too much,
donation.
way too much.
This is actually just gonna be a
Mm-mm.
thank you to Niagara that donated the water. Niagara Cares donated the water we used here at Central Mountain for graduation. Any questions on that? Next, we have the board secretary policy. That's just taking the bond off of Tracy Long. Any questions on that?
And we're rebonding
Christine will get. bonded.
Christine
In July.
in July.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good night.
Moving right along. We have some library reading reports. It just talks about the books that were pulled out from the library to be disposed of at Robb Central Mountain High School, Mill Hall. Any questions on those? Well, I'm sorry, Central Mountain Middle School. Any questions on those? Next up, we have a couple of real estate issues. One was exoneration that somebody was not given the farmstead, homestead
Mhm.
discount of $300. It was a mistake by the county assessment office. So to rectify that, we're gonna refund the money.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that?
What happens?
a real estate refund request for another one that was assessed. I think $1,600. 1695. Another county assessment clerical error, and we're gonna refund the money. Any questions on that? The Bucktail High Wall repair, for those that were up there, it's the wall on the east end of the building of the high wall where the gymnasium is above the boys' locker room. There is some damage where the wall's starting to fall out. I think we talked about this previous facility meetings, and I thought we talked about last month at our meeting. Any questions on that?
Is there only one bid on that one?
Yeah, so we had,
And why?
we had other options that were asked to be looked at, and the other options ended up being a lot more expensive. So,
And this is when they do this repair, if I remember our discussion properly. If there is worse damage, this is the one time it's gonna be open, right? And this is where, if it is worse, we're gonna find out during this, right?
Yeah, they're gonna tear it apart if there's additional stuff that's not covered in the, this was done through the JOC, the job order contracting, so it was bid to multiple contractors through Gordian. So they do that in the background and then they use the book pricing, but he did solicit the multiple contractors for the masonry repairs. If there's additional stuff that they find once they get into it, they'll come back to us.
Okay, thank you so much, Rob.
okay, any other questions? No. 40, install the ALC controls. Any questions on that?
And the air handler units.
Air handler units.
Both of those are.
For the high school.
Yeah, Central Mountain High
Yep.
School.
Needed,
Um,
much needed.
Next up, we have HRD stormwater piping repair. I believe this is for what, engineering surveys and repairing.
Once again, we only have one bid.
I did go out, I called a couple of the other engineering firms. Nobody else picked it up or was interested in bidding it. We typically use HRG for a lot of our bigger stuff. I did ask some of the other ones and they weren't interested,
I
so.
just find it amazing that everything we're doing is running through companies in State College. There has to be companies, others that want to do stuff.
I wish we knew the reason why. I mean, the real
Yeah.
reason, the real reason.
Most of the engineering companies are in State College or Harrisburg. Most of the ones we find, like the one that ELA, which is another one that does this, they're located out of Harrisburg. So we did try to find, closer to local companies.
Okay, I did it. Oh, so sorry, Chris, are you finished?
No,
Any
it's-
other questions?
that's it.
Yes.
I made my.
Of course, this is being given to us. We have to make a decision. Rubber stamp it. That's the way I feel right now. I hope I'm
Yeah.
wrong, but what I don't understand is why, if this is a storm drain, I understand you want to get it fixed this summer before school starts. I understand. But this is where we never go considering the 21st century, a bioswale retention pond or something. Because the West Branch, when that school was built, the West Branch was orange and it was a public sewer. There were no sewer system plants on the West Branch. Now today,
This is, you're wrong about that. The sewer system plant was back there in Renova at the time. But first of all, this is not sewer water. This is storm water coming from the mountain that's being diverted underground along to.
this doesn't include any parking lots or streets. It's 100% mountain water.
Stormwater
This,
coming from-
this water runs from the railroad tracks across the practice field underneath the softball field and goes to the riverside, the riverbank. It does include, I believe it includes the stormwater from the rooftops of our buildings. Because when we did the camera through the piping, we found some tees in there where it looks like it's teed in. I understand that we'd like to do, a 21st century fix on this thing. But I think we're going into a big expense if we want to put, the bioswales, those sorts of things. But the first step in this is to have the engineering firm come in and take a look at it. Maybe they'll come back and tell us after they meet with DEP and the county conservation and all those different entities that will be involved and say, this is what you have to do. But we've directed the engineering firm to try and come back with a low-cost alternative to repair this. So it stops eroding the riverbank and allows us to, be safe up around the softball field, because right now it's a drop off at the edge of the softball field. We fenced it, but we have to do something with it. DEP's has looked at it and said, you guys have to get a plan together of what you want to do with this thing.
Okay, so this company is just gonna come, camera the entire system, tell us what's going on with the pipes, how many gallons are going through it. Or, they're gonna give us, is it in the contract, they're gonna give us alternative fixes? Because what I'm trying to say is, we need to consider moving forward and using these broken old things as a new way to vision the 21st century for our campuses. Now, maybe this one is not that particular one, but if the school board and the public don't have options, because if they do have the option of a bioswale, that means that can turn into an educational thing for the kids. It might end up being curriculum. It might end up being a scientific study. And most of you, may not even know what a bioswale is. And if that's the case, I apologize. But unless it's in the contract that the school board, if everyone's in agreement or majority people, we want also options. And not just another pipe out to the river, because that's the way we used to do it.
Well, I'm willing to bet that there's some kind of environmental grants that you could find to recycle a lot of that water.
Oh, County Conservation District works with private and public and, they're the go-to people for this. But again,
What we're doing here is hiring an engineer to come in and look and determine what needs done. And after we have them hired, then we can discuss what we want done and how we're gonna pay for it. But now we just have to find someone to come in and find out what's wrong with it and what needs to be repaired.
well, that's the thing though, if they think they're coming in just to look at the pipe, to replace the pipe like a slip line or something, and then all of a sudden we switch, well, wait a minute, we want options. If it's not clearly, if the board doesn't, and administration clearly doesn't put it in this document, we can't go back later and say, oh, by the way, this is actually what we meant. So again, I'm gonna table this one because it could have gone through the facilities committee and been discussed, and we wouldn't have to table this one also. So,
Again, you can vote on it when we get to that voting
yes,
section.
yes,
Rob,
absolutely.
Did you see the video?
Have I seen the video? Yeah,
What kind of pipe is it?
it's corrugated steel pipe,
So it's probably.
30-inch corrugated
So
steel
it's
pipe.
probably rotted and collapsed.
It's actually remarkably in fairly good shape for everything but about the last 50 feet where it comes out of the riverbank is where it appears to be the worst. But there is some deterioration of the bottom of the pipe throughout the length of it, but it doesn't appear to be rotted out and collapsed and be horrible. But the last 50 feet, it's just totally gone. And that's why this has been going on for about 5 years. Now DEP has stepped in and said, you need to do something about it. So that,
Because the pipe is no longer existent is why you're having backup issues.
well, we don't have backup issues. It's just eroding the bank.
Okay.
It's taken about, I don't know, if you have to go up and look at it, but you probably walk out there. It's back to the edge of the wood line behind the softball field now.
Is this replacing that pipe or?
No, the engineers gotta decide, but if
Right.
that's all it truly is and the pipe has been sufficient, I bet they put a new piece of pipe on the end. They put some R8s on the bank, to stop the erosion, call it good.
Well, and that may be, but they have to go through the engineering piece of that to tell us. They're gonna get there's a NIPD's permit, I believe it has to be. There's a few different permits that they want. We've met with county conservation, we've met with DEP. They're gonna go through the process of getting all the permits in place and also coming back with recommendations to us of how we can fix it. And what we have directed them is we want a cost-effective way of fixing this. I did not discuss with them, the bioswales and that sort of thing. And just for the fact that we know that's going to change this from, a $250,000 project to a $3 or $4 million project. If that's the direction that we want to go, we can look for grants for some of that kind of stuff and we can do that. But it will come back to Facilities Committee to be discussed once they've looked at it and permitted it.
Any other questions? Next up, Central Mountain Middle School canopy repair. Or removal, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Removal.
I got questions on that.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna tie them right in with the bleacher and press box. The only reason I'm bringing this up is I had two contractors found out about it and asked me why wasn't it put out for a bid or questions. And one of them told me that he looked online and saw their pricing and stuff. He said the canopy could be done for under $5,000. He said, but they're being bid just under 25,000 because each job, because if you hit $25,000, it's required to get 3 bids. But if you, and then it was asked, why aren't these two included if they're in the same property?
This was a project that was put out and publicly advertised in both, I think it was what papers, I don't know, but one paper or two, probably Renova Record and Lock-Haven Express. There was a pre-bid meeting. Nobody showed up for them. I reached out to a couple, GNR was the one I reached out to, that nobody came from them. We had one person show up. So when we publicly bid this stuff, we advertise it, we go through the process. I can't do much more than that.
Well, there's a lot of companies here that said if they'd have known about it, they would have bid on it. But once again, we're back to a Center County company bidding on both of them. Should have just been one project where we had to have 3 bids.
Yeah.
No, we have to have 3 bids, or we have to have bids on it because we publicly advertised it. This went through the process.
Okay.
It's advertised in the paper, it's advertised on our website.
So we only got 1 bid?
We got 1 bid.
Yeah. It is what it is now. It's too late for the other guys that wanted it.
Well, I will say this is another example. We've been talking about this for years and years and years and years. Somewhere there's a communication breakdown. I don't know if it's with the Clinton County Economic Partnership. I don't know what that is because but the board should consider working with the assistant and the superintendent to find out what we need to do. What are we doing wrong? What do we need to improve on? So these local companies don't keep saying they found out about it too late. Okay, there's a miscommunication there. And hopefully maybe that's something that'll be one of the goals when we decide what the superintendent's goals are going to be in the future or whatever.
Moving right along.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, the Mill Hall fire alarm system. It's to install a new fire alarm system at Mill Hall. I think it's using the same systems that we have in the other buildings.
Correct. It was advertised in the same group of advertising. We tried to lump our advertising together when we did it was Mill Hall fire alarms, canopy, and bleachers. They were all 3 in the same advertisement. Now, I received 15 calls probably on the Mill Hall fire alarm from electrical contractors throughout the state. So it's obviously getting seen. The advertising worked because it got seen. But it was seen by electrical contractors and not junk contractors. The junk men seemed to, they came in after the fact once they had seen it on the board minutes or something. But yes, we did advertise all in the same place. And I don't know why some contractors pick this stuff up and some don't. But we received 2 bids on that, and it's going to end up going to Keystone. Keystone was the lowest on that. Actually, we received 3 bids on that. Keystone was the lowest.
Yeah, the Keystone between Mikesell was $16,697 difference. That's a lot.
Rob,
Yes.
question for you. With the middle school bleacher and press box removal, that whole thing there, that project.
Correct.
There are propane tanks out there that are used for heating, creating, what is it, out by the food stand or whatever that's out there?
That food stand's not leaving. It's just the bleachers, and we've also,
So we're not gonna have to worry about anything in that area? I was
no,
actually asked about those. That's why I was just
no, the
wondering.
only thing we're taking down, at this point, we're gonna take down the bleachers. And Dr. Redmond and myself and Dave were over and looked. We believe we're gonna leave the press box. We'll ask for a change order to leave the press box there, and we can utilize that for the
You can still,
time being.
okay. But the concession stand and that stuff,
That's staying.
that's, okay, perfect.
Yep.
That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the fire alarm? Next up, we have the Central Mountain High School water heater. Any questions on the water heater being installed?
Only one bid on that, because that's your favorite company.
Chris, I don't have any favorite companies. We solicit to these things. We use the companies that will work for us and have worked well with us over the years. I don't think there's no favoritism to anybody. Whoever submits the lowest bid is who's going to get it.
Okay.
Any questions? Next up, we have a QA plus. Basically, that was just an agreement we had for the Liberty Curtin School, the company that we had the environmental, I think it's environmental stuff.
They're actually the testing agencies that are required by labor and industry. QA Plus actually sold to Barry Isaac and Associate. I renegotiated that contract with those guys. We saved about $30,000 by doing that. It's a not to exceed number. If there's additional testing that we can exclude or we don't need, and it's not required by the state, it's not required by us, that number could be in the end lower than what that final number. I think it's 229 for that contract. It could come out lower, but originally we had approved a purchase order at 270 to QA Plus. They did about $15,000 of work, and we cut about $30,000 out of
The reason we have to
this
do
new one.
is because the company changed owners.
Yeah, and that's the biggest one. When they changed owners, we negotiated it and got it brought down.
Any questions on that? First read for policies. Policy 706, disposal of surplus property. Any questions on that? Policy 012, board superintendent relationship. Any questions on that?
Yes, I asked that we table that till the next policy meeting because what we had agreed on and talked about got changed and shortened and some wording was different, and we need to go back and discuss that.
Yeah,
again.
this was not what was presented during the
When we get to
policy.
the voting section, we can table it.
Okay,
Just for clarification, the changes that were made on that were the questions that were, or the changes recommended by the policy committee. It's the only thing we changed on this.
no, there
No,
wasn't.
that's, I have my
There's
other
a
hard copy.
huge,
home.
there's a huge
It's
amount of
different.
changes.
Discuss, we'll
It's different.
Okay.
table it and go from there.
Yep.
Policy 903, public comment, board meetings. Any questions
There's,
on that?
that needs the same thing.
Yep.
We'll do it during the voting section, we'll pull it.
Yep.
K1, personnel, any questions? K2, job description, custodial supervisor, warehouse leader. Any questions on that?
I did have a question about
Go
this.
ahead, Elizabeth.
I know that we're losing people because other places, Lock Haven University, et cetera, they're paying more, and I know we can't get into a pricing war, okay? But I'm hoping that administration, superintendent, assistant superintendent, personnel committee, we really need to stop being a revolving door and give these and decide how much we're really, are we gonna, I'm sorry, this meeting is way too long. I am losing my train of thought because I am so utterly exhausted. I am so angry that this meeting is so long, so I'm trying my best to focus. But don't ever do this again to any of us, the staff or anybody, okay?
Please continue. so
Yes.
We can get out of here.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Okay, what I'm trying to articulate is that, are we competitive? And please don't keep saying we, because we offer great health insurance, because we found that these folks, to them, health insurance, quote, doesn't feed me, okay? are we competitive? When we put out this, when people come and
That-
apply,
But that had nothing to do with this job description. This
Well-
job description is basically for replacing someone that retired.
well, I know, but what I'm trying to
Okay.
say is that, is this job description, are we going to be able to give the individual, if we get, will we get will we be able to get quality people? And not, because we were able to offer them a good competitive wage. Does this job description, will that attract that type of person, is what I'm trying to say, or is this,
Well, it's all under the collective bargaining agreements also.
okay, well, obviously I'm not able to. Never mind, go ahead.
Okay, any other questions on the job description for the custodial supervisor, warehouse leader? Nope. Job description for KCSE Learning Center, K-12 online learning academic advisor.
I'm gonna ask that we table this one just because we got handed the paperwork tonight on it. We got way too much here to go through in one night.
I can't
I'm
justify
actually,
this.
when we're done here, I'm going to ask for an adjournment and that we table the voting meeting and make a new session next week.
Thank
To
you.
get that done.
Yeah, because I can't.
Because I'm not gonna be here
I am
till
really gonna
midnight,
crack.
2 o'clock in the morning.
I
Just
am
to
just
cram
really gonna
stuff,
crack.
to cram stuff into one meeting this long with all this stuff to agree to.
Huge mistake, huge.
Is, I feel it's done just so we can pound stuff
I am
through.
trying to do the best I can. I'm an elected
Elizabeth-
official and I
Elizabeth.
am not given an opportunity.
Elizabeth?
This is way too
can we
much.
continue?
Big mistake.
Let's get it done at least to the end, Elizabeth.
I'm trying.
Any
Thank you.
questions on the job description? You're asking the table during the voting section.
Yeah.
We'll do it then. We have job description for property service supervisor. Any questions on that?
No, that was put out very nicely.
Any questions on job description for the substitute KCSD school police security officer?
No.
Why is there a substitute?
Because we don't have any now. We have none, we had none. We're
Gotta
looking
have
at
a backup.
We're looking at something when they take a day off.
Okay, great, super terrific, good, I'm happy to start.
We're looking
Curricular,
at-
co-curricular. Any questions of athletic student activity personnel?
No.
Any questions on the ELA curriculum? Negotiations. MOU for the SROs for the 2024-27 yearly raises. If you remember, we signed MOUs last year with the school resource officers. We never had one previous to that.
Right.
We came up with them and it's an annual contract. So this is looking at raises for that. Any questions on that?
The solicitor did obviously review all of these, right?
Number two.
Did the solicitor review all of these or not, please?
I don't know. We don't use a solicitor like you have in the past. Our solicitors to review stuff when we need them to review stuff. We hired a superintendent, an assistant superintendent to review stuff.
Okay, I just would feel more comfortable in today's world that the.
Well, that method of understanding, number one, if you look at that, that's just short, plain to the point.
Yes, that's.
Those guys never had a contract. They deserved one 10 years ago.
Yes,
So I'm okay with that.
Next up, the MOU, and this is just for clarification with the KCESP. There was some. Just needed clarification on what we discussed during the negotiations that was agreed on by the counselors. The solicitors did review all this
that was,
stuff.
that was the one I meant.
So this is
one.
just something we had to have.
M2, that's
There
the
was
one I
just a
meant.
Question we had. Just to clarify stuff. Any questions on that?
I make a motion, we adjourn, but before we adjourn, I make a motion that we pick a night for next week and do the voting and the other executive meeting, because this is dragging on.
Yeah,
way
I
too
second
long.
that immediately.
This should never have been stacked
No,
like this.
never. I'm exhausted. I am going home. And if you.
Can we, please, may I speak?
Mhm.
We have to have so many days to advertise. How many days do we need to advertise?
2,
For the
3.
next meeting?
2 or 3.
To hit it in the paper and to get it advertised probably.
We have the
looking at
guys on the
3 days.
paper right there. They're
So we
following
can
us.
probably look at,
I personally do not want to sit through another meeting.
Then don't
Well,
come.
we should have
Don't
had
come.
one last week.
Don't come.
please be a little bit hospitable.
I
How about-
apologize
how
for my
about we're
voice.
looking at-
I apologize.
Do we have time to advertise it for June 20th?
Yes, we
Yes.
do.
Can we please advertise? We'll have a voting session on June 20th.
And Act 44.
We can do the Act 44 that night also.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bless your hearts.
Is
And
there any issue with the timing of the budget, approving the budget with that?
Yes.
Yes, we do. That does create a timing problem with the budget. Joni, do you want to speak
Yes,
to
it
that?
does.
Sure it does.
It has to be posted for so.
I think I need 15 days prior to the 30th.
Saturday the 15th.
All right, if you just want to pull one item off, maybe, and we'll just vote for that, your thing, and we'll close the meeting. How's that sound, Joni? Does that work for you, baby girl?
I'm good with that.
All right.
All right. then
But
I
that's
make a
up to you
motion
guys.
That we pull that one thing off for the budget. And
Okay.
then we stop the rest of the meeting and we come back on the 20th
We're
to
gonna-
finish. Cause a lot of us we gotta go through a lot of this. There's a lot of info to vote on one night and digest.
It is.
What we're gonna do is have an adjournment for this meeting now. Have a motion for adjournment.
I made that.
For the
I'll
work
second it.
session.
Just that motion adjournment.
Mhm.
I'd like to take a 5-minute break before we come back. We're gonna call meeting to order, the meeting to order for a voting session. And we'll vote on the budget, so that's taken care of. Everything else can wait till the 20th. We can vote on having a meeting on the 20th.
Okay,
Is that acceptable?
absolutely.
Deeply
I'm
appreciated.
talking to everyone else. Bill, you good with that? Roger?
When do you want to have the
Doesn't matter to me. I
meeting?
can go all night.
20th.
You guys
Next
have never
week.
cut it.
I can too.
You guys
but-
have
Is
never
that-
cut it as plow truck drivers. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm gonna use the facility. We'll be back. We'll start again in 5 minutes.
It's not fair to the staff.
Voting session. In order. I'm sorry, what? We're gonna call a voting session to order. Please stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Dr. Baldino. Mr. Cannon,
Here.
Mrs. Donahue. She there?
Yes.
There.
Polly, you still here?
These are-
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Elling,
Present.
Mr. Johnston,
Here.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Here.
Mr. Scaff,
Here.
Mrs. Smith,
Here.
9 members present.
Okay, we're gonna do a little, I guess, unusual this evening. We're gonna skip through everything and have 2 votes. The first vote, I'd like a motion to move everything to a special meeting on
I'll make the
June
motion
20th.
that we that we move everything except this one item on the budget to June 20th. At what time do you want to do it? 6:30? To
6:30.
continue the voting meeting from there, I make that motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second. Any questions on moving the voting section?
One question.
Go ahead.
Frank, if the only other one I'm worried about is the kids going to Atlanta. Is that gonna be okay if we don't vote on that until then?
Trying to think of the date. of
It's,
that. If, that might be really nice to
I
have
think it was
that
like the
taken care of.
24th or something.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that too? I
Why don't
mean,
we
you
do
know,
that? Okay, we'll add that to the voting section.
I will accept, or I make a motion to second the,
Addition.
yeah,
Yes.
So we have two items we're gonna vote on,
I'm trying to
budget
find-
and the kids.
right?
So we're looking at I three. Excuse me. G four.
What is it? G4?
G4.
Was there a second to that motion?
We have a motion by Chris, a second by Roger.
What is the motion? Can
The
you repeat the
motion is to
motion?
have a special meeting on the 20th with all items on the agenda, with the exception of G4 and I3. Is that clarified for everyone? The motion is, we're gonna be voting on moving this meeting to the 20th at 6:30, with the exception of G4 and I3.
Aye.
Any questions? No?
I have a
All those in
Hold on,
favor
hold on.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Sounds like we are 8-1.
I have a question.
Too late for questions. We've already had to vote. Questions was before.
Yeah, let's rock.
Next up,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for G4, the out-of-state field trip,
Is it G4?
G.
Golf 4.
Okay,
We have
I
a
skipped
motion for
over.
G4. Do I have a second?
Second.
second.
We have a second by Elizabeth. Any questions on G4? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for the final general fund budget.
I'll second.
I3.
We have a motion by Roger, a second by Tracy. Any questions on the budget? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cannon,
No.
Mrs. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Knopf,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
No.
Mr. Scaff,
Absolutely no.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Dr. Baldino.
No.
Motion passes 5-4.
Motion passes 5-4.
Make a motion for adjournment.
We have a motion to adjourn. And a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. We'll see everyone next week.
So you're gonna do Act 44 the same night then, right?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know why we didn't.